Hello guys, welcome to Fanfic Universe. Today we have an incredible story for you. What if the Fourth Hokage sealed a werewolf spirit alongside the Kyuubi and Naruto awakened both at once? If you enjoy the video, please like and subscribe. Let's get into it. Chapter 1. The night both spirits woke, the alley behind Ichiraku smelled like rain and rotting wood, and Naruto had learned long ago that alleys like this one never meant anything good. He'd been running for about 6 blocks before they caught him, 3 of them, all adults, all wearing the particular expression that Naruto had catalogued somewhere in the back of his 7-year-old brain as the face people make right before they stop pretending. They weren't drunk. That almost would have been better. Drunk people hit sloppily and got tired fast. These 3 were methodical about it, which told him they'd done this before, maybe to him specifically, maybe to others. The result was the same either way. The first hit caught him across the shoulder and spun him into the alley wall. The second dropped him to his knees in a puddle that soaked through his orange shorts immediately, cold as a slap. After that it became harder to track individual blows. His vision went the blurry, watercolor kind that meant his body was starting to check out even while his brain was still screaming. He curled up. That was the thing they never talked about in the books at the academy library, the ones he sometimes snuck into when the librarian wasn't watching. The books talked about combat and defense, about blocking and rolling with impact. Nobody wrote about what you did when you were 7 and 40 kilos soaking wet and 3 full-grown men had decided that your existence was an offense worth correcting. You curled up. You made yourself small. You waited for it to be over. The thing was, Naruto had always healed fast. Faster than normal, faster than the kids at the orphanage who scraped their knees and still had scabs a week later. He'd healed fast enough that a couple of the adults who supervised him had stopped bothering to document his injuries at all, which he understood now, at 7, was not a kindness but a convenience. If it didn't leave a mark, nobody had to explain it. So when the 3 men finally got bored, or satisfied, it was hard to tell which, and left him alone in the puddle with the rain starting to come down harder and the smell of the river somewhere nearby mixing with blood and wet stone, Naruto just waited. Give it 20 minutes and the worst of it would dull. Give it an hour and he'd be able to walk home. He knew the routine. He lay there and stared up at the strip of sky between the buildings, dark and heavy with clouds that kept eating the stars, and he breathed very carefully around whatever was going on in his ribs. And then something shifted. Not physically. Not in the alley. It was somewhere deeper than that, somewhere underneath the pain and the cold and the smell of the puddle, like a door at the bottom of a very dark lake had just swung open on both its hinges at once. Naruto blinked. The alley was gone. He was standing in water. Not the puddle, water, ankle deep and perfectly still, stretching in every direction to walls he could just barely make out in the dim reddish light. The air smelled like something old and breathing, like a forest right before a storm rolls in, and the ceiling above him was lost in shadow. He turned slowly, his feet making almost no sound in the water, and ahead of him there were bars. Big ones. Thick as old-growth trees, stretching floor to ceiling, and behind them a darkness that moved. The darkness had eyes. Red eyes. 9 of them, scattered through the black like coals, and every single one of them was looking directly at him with an expression that Naruto, even at 7, understood was not friendliness. It was assessment. The way a very large, very old animal looks at something that has wandered into its territory, deciding whether it's worth eating or just worth warning off. So, said a voice that wasn't quite sound, more like pressure behind the eyes. You finally break enough to come here. Naruto looked at the eyes for a long moment. His ribs still hurt, even here. That seemed unfair. I didn't come here on purpose, he said. Where is here? The darkness shifted. Something enormous moved behind the bars. He got the impression of fur, of mass, of a tail that would have flattened a building sweeping through the shadows. My prison. Your mind. The distinction matters less than you think. You're the fox, Naruto said. I am the Kyuubi no Yoko. The voice dropped half an octave on the title, like a reflex. 9 tails. Endless chakra. The greatest of the tailed beasts. And I am sealed inside a child who just got beaten by 3 humans too cowardly to find a real fight. I didn't ask to be beaten. You didn't run fast enough to avoid it either. That was so unexpectedly practical that Naruto almost laughed. Almost. He was still taking stock of where he was and what was happening and whether any of this was real or just what happened when your brain decided to stop working correctly after too many hits to the head. Okay, he said. So you've been in here. In me. Since I was born. Sealed by your father. Yes. Naruto opened his mouth to ask about his father, because that was the first real piece of information about his parents that anyone had ever given him, even accidentally, and it landed in his chest like a hot coal. But before he could form the words, something else happened. The water changed color. It went from the reddish tint of the fox's presence to something silvery, like moonlight on a still lake, and it came from behind him. He turned. On the other side of the space, farther back and somehow separate from the fox's domain in a way that didn't make architectural sense but made perfect instinctive sense, there was a second gate. Not bars like a cage, more like a door built into the wall itself, ancient stone carved with markings he didn't recognize, and through it came the silver light, steady and cold and clear. And the sound. It was low, almost below hearing, a vibration more than a note, like the lowest string on a massive instrument being plucked once and allowed to resonate. It moved through the water and through the floor and up through the soles of his feet and into the center of his chest, and something there recognized it in a way that bypassed thinking entirely. Behind him, the fox made a sound. Not words. Something between a growl and surprise. The door opened. What came through wasn't a monster. Naruto had braced for a monster. The fox was already at the top of his mental scale of terrifying things, so anything else should have been smaller. But the wolf that stepped through the silver gate was different in every way the fox was not. The fox was enormousness and rage and fire. The wolf was presence. It was the feeling right before lightning strikes, the silence in a forest when every animal has already run and you just haven't figured out why yet. It was white, completely, impossibly white, like snow that had never been touched, except that its eyes were silver, the exact color of the light that had come before it, and they were calm in a way that was more unsettling than the fox's fury. The fox's eyes said, I will destroy you. The wolf's eyes said, I have already seen everything that you are. It was enormous. Not as enormous as the fox, but the fox was scale without meaning, too big to fully comprehend, more of a concept than a creature. The wolf was big enough to be real. Big enough that Naruto had to tilt his head back to look at its face, but not so big that he couldn't see individual things, the scars through the white fur on its left shoulder, the way each of its paws displaced the water without sound, the slow, measured rhythm of its breathing. It sat. Just sat, like a dog settling in front of a fire, except that nothing about it read as domesticated or gentle. It sat the way a mountain sits, not because it was tired, but because it had decided to, and the decision was absolute. You are hurt, it said. The voice was different from the fox's. Lower, somehow quieter and more present at the same time, like it was coming from directly inside his skull. It didn't ask. It stated. Yeah, Naruto said. You did not fight. There were 3 of them and I'm 7. The wolf looked at him for a long moment. Its silver eyes moved slowly over him, and Naruto had the distinct impression of being read like a book, not just his body but everything, his history, his decisions, the shape of who he'd been up until 30 seconds ago. Numbers are a problem of tactics, it said finally. Not a reason. Easy for you to say, you're a giant magic wolf. Something shifted in the wolf's expression. Not a smile, Naruto wasn't sure wolves could smile, but something in the silver eyes that was adjacent to approval. It tilted its enormous head slightly. I am Fenrir, it said. I have been waiting inside the seal for 7 years for you to be ready. Ready for what? For this conversation. It lowered its head until its silver eyes were closer to his level, and Naruto stood his ground, which seemed to matter to it in some way. I am not your enemy, Naruto. I am not your weapon. I am not your servant. A pause. I am your other half. Whether you accept that is your choice. But I will tell you what I told every other host who came before you. What? I am very old, it said simply. And I have survived everything. So have you. The question is whether you plan to keep surviving, or whether you plan to start living. Behind Naruto, the fox made a noise that might have been a scoff, or might have been something more complicated than that. Naruto looked between them, the ancient, enormous fox in its cage of bars, all 9 tails and red eyes and fury barely contained, and the white wolf sitting in the silver light like it had been waiting in exactly this spot for the entirety of history. 2 spirits. 2 kinds of wild. Both of them inside him. He was 7 years old, lying in a puddle in an alley behind a Chiraka ramen, and his ribs were cracked, and apparently he'd been carrying 2 ancient chakra entities in his body since the night he was born. He thought about that for a second. Okay, he said. So what do we do now? The wolf's silver eyes caught the light. Now, it said, you get up. Naruto woke up in the alley. The rain had gotten heavier while he was unconscious, or wherever he'd been, and it was washing the blood out of the puddle around him in thin pink streamers toward the drainage grate at the alley's end. He lay there for a moment, taking inventory. Ribs, the sharp broken glass feeling was already dulling to a deep ache, which was faster than normal even for him. Lip, split, already closing. The bruising across his shoulders and back was a distant thing, more memory than sensation. He got up. Not carefully, the way he would have gotten up before, testing each movement, checking what hurt, rationing effort. He just got up, the way the wolf had said it, like it was a decision rather than a physical process. His legs held. His back straightened. The rain hit his face and he let it. He stood in the alley for a moment, water running through his hair and into his collar, and he felt something that he didn't have words for yet but that he would spend years trying to articulate. It wasn't confidence exactly. Confidence was what you performed when you wanted people to think you weren't afraid. This was something further back than that. Something that lived under the fear rather than replacing it. He walked home. Not ran. Walked, and the 3 men who had left him there an hour ago were 2 streets over, still together, loud with whatever they thought they'd accomplished, and Naruto walked past the mouth of the street where they were standing and didn't look at them and didn't hurry and none of them noticed, but if they had, they might have noticed that the 7-year-old with the wet blonde hair was walking with his spine completely straight and his eyes forward, and something in that specific combination might have stopped them mid-laugh. He didn't think about it consciously. He just walked like he had somewhere to be. His apartment was on the 4th floor of a building that smelled like boiled rice and mildew and the particular loneliness of people who lived in close proximity without knowing each other. He climbed the stairs, unlocked his door with the key he kept on a cord around his neck because he'd locked himself out twice in the last year and the landlord had charged him for both, and went inside. The apartment was small. He'd decorated it himself, which mostly meant there was orange everywhere, orange curtains from the market, 3 orange cushions on the couch that he'd found at different times and different places, an orange mug on the kitchen counter that he used for everything because it was the only one that wasn't cracked. The walls had a few things tacked to them, a list of ninja techniques he was teaching himself from library books, a hand-drawn map of the village he'd made when he was 5 and updated since, a single photograph that he'd found in a box in the orphanage before he'd been moved out at age 6, of a woman with red hair who was laughing at something off camera. He didn't know who she was. He kept the photo anyway. He sat on the edge of his bed in his wet clothes and pressed a hand to his ribs and breathed. "You heal faster when you stop tensing," said a voice. Not out loud. Inside, the way both of them spoke, but this one was the wolf, quieter, more direct. "I know," he said. Out loud, because talking to voices in his head felt less strange if he actually used his mouth. "Sleep. Your body will finish the work. I have questions." "You have many questions." The questions will still be there in the morning. A pause. The fox will not answer them pleasantly. I will answer them honestly. In the morning. From somewhere deeper, further back, the fox said nothing. But there was something in the quality of the silence that was different from how Naruto had imagined the Kyuubi's silence before. He'd always thought of it as a void, a nothing, like the thing inside him was absent. Now he could feel it the way you feel a fire in the next room. Present. Aware. Watching. He lay back on the bed in his wet clothes and stared at the ceiling. Outside, the rain kept going. Somewhere in the village, people were going about their evenings, eating, talking, arguing, laughing, and none of them knew. The thought should have been lonely and wasn't. It was just a fact. He knew something they didn't. He'd always known something they didn't, he just hadn't known what it was until tonight. He fell asleep faster than he expected. He dreamed of a white forest under a silver moon. 3 weeks later, Naruto broke Konoha's record for the Academy's chakra sensitivity exercise. The exercise was simple enough in concept: sit still, breathe, and sense the flow of chakra in the space around you, indicating its direction each time the instructor shifted the source. Most students at his level could track it about 60% of the time. Good students got to 80%. The record, set 4 years ago by a Hyuga student with natural chakra perception far above average, was 93%. Naruto sat in the back of the room with his arms crossed and his eyes closed and tracked the chakra with 100% accuracy for 12 consecutive minutes until Iruka-sensei stopped the exercise and just stood there looking at his clipboard. Uzumaki, Iruka said, in the particular tone of voice that meant he was working very hard to sound neutral. Have you been practicing this at home? Kind of, Naruto said. That was true, technically. What he'd actually been doing was spending 30 minutes every morning sitting on his apartment roof in the dark before sunrise, letting Fenrir walk him through something the wolf called listening, which wasn't meditation exactly but involved a similar quality of stillness. The wolf had an interesting approach to instruction. It didn't explain things, it just told him to do them and then described what he was doing wrong until he stopped doing it wrong. No theory. No vocabulary. Just function. Your chakra was wrong before, the wolf had told him on the 4th morning, blunt as stone. You were pushing it instead of allowing it. Chakra is not a tool you wield. It is a current you step into. Sensei says, your sensei is competent. He is not ancient. A pause. Try again. Naruto had tried again. And again. And on the 7th morning something had clicked open somewhere behind his sternum and the chakra had just been there, present and available in a way it had never been before, and he'd sat on the roof in the pre-dawn quiet feeling the pulse of the village around him, the cook fires being lit in the early ramen stands, the patrol shinobi moving along their routes, the deep steady rhythm of the old trees along the Hokage monument. And he'd thought, oh, that's what it is. Kurama, for his part, had been watching all of this with the specific quality of silence that Naruto had started to recognize as the fox being interested but too proud to say so. They'd had 3 real conversations since the alley, real in the sense of more than 3 exchanges, and all 3 had been abrasive in different ways. The fox was not warming to him. But it was watching, and Naruto had started to suspect that for something as old as Kurama, watching was a form of investment. You're curious, Naruto had said on the 2nd night, sitting in the mindscape with the silver water and the barred gate and the wolf quiet in its space on the other side. I am ancient and imprisoned, Kurama said. I am many things. But you're watching what we're doing. The training. A silence. Then, the wolf is teaching you its methods. I want to see if they work on a human. And nothing. Go to sleep. Your math homework is unfinished. That had been so unexpectedly domestic that Naruto had laughed until his ribs hurt, which made Kurama angrier, which made Naruto laugh harder. It was the first real thing that had happened between them. The academy performance shift didn't happen all at once, it crept, which was almost more alarming to the people watching. Iruka was the main person watching. He'd always kept a closer eye on Naruto than the other instructors, out of some combination of sympathy and guilt that Naruto had never fully decoded, and the shift from the Naruto he knew, loud, performatively bad at everything, disrupting class to hide that he was actually paying attention, to this version was subtle enough that at first Iruka thought he was imagining it. The loudness didn't go away. The humor didn't go away. But there was something underneath those things now that hadn't been there before, like a new layer of foundation under an already standing building. Naruto still made the jokes. He still drew pictures in the margins of his notes. He still talked back to Iruka with the kind of cheerful insubordination that suggested he hadn't yet decided whether rules were suggestions or obstacles. But he'd started answering questions before they were finished being asked. He'd started finishing written exercises in half the time allotted and then spending the second half doing something else, which Iruka initially read as inattention until he checked the answers and found them all correct. He'd started watching the other students with an expression that was new, not the desperate, wanting look he used to wear when he looked at Sasuke, not competitive exactly, more like assessment. Like he was categorizing people by qualities Iruka didn't have names for. And then the physical exercises started catching up. Naruto had always been physically capable, his endurance was off the charts, his pain tolerance was something the medical exam regularly flagged as a possible nerve issue and regularly failed to find a medical explanation for. But his technical skill had lagged, the natural result of a kid teaching himself from books without a family or clan to drill the basics into him from infancy. That was changing. Fast enough that Iruka mentioned it to the Hokage. Hiruzen heard the report from Iruka with his hands folded on his desk and his pipe unlit, which meant he was thinking rather than performing calm. He asked 2 questions when Iruka finished: how long had this been building, and had Naruto shown any signs of abnormal chakra during the changes? Iruka said 2 to 3 weeks, and yes, but only briefly, a spike during the chakra sensitivity exercise that had registered higher than anything Iruka's measurement tools were calibrated for, gone before he could note the exact figure. Hiruzen said he would look into it. He thanked Iruka and waited until the classroom teacher was out of the building before he sat very still in his chair for a long time and looked at the sealed file in the 3rd drawer of his desk, the one he hadn't opened since the night after Minato's death when he'd read it twice, locked it, and prayed he'd never have to think about it again. The file that contained Minato's notes on the 2nd seal. He didn't open it. He sat there a while longer, and then he took out his pipe and lit it, which meant he'd stopped thinking and started worrying, and went back to his other work. 2 days after Iruka's report, Naruto got into a fight. Not in an alley this time, in the open market near the academy, broad midday, enough witnesses that it became a story that circulated through 3 separate social networks in Konoha before sundown. The facts, as best as they could be reconstructed afterward: a genin, 17 years old, recently failed his 2nd Chunin exam, had decided that the boy with the Kyuubi seal was a good target for whatever frustration he was carrying that particular afternoon. He'd started with words, the usual kind, nothing original, and then, when Naruto had just looked at him instead of reacting the way he apparently expected, had escalated to a shove. What happened after the shove was the part people kept describing differently, because none of them were entirely sure they'd seen it correctly. What they could agree on, Naruto moved. He moved the way the genin absolutely had not expected a 7-year-old academy student to move, not scrambling, not defensive, not with the flailing energy of a kid fighting back out of panic. He stepped to the side of the shove, and then one of his hands caught the genin's wrist, and the genin, 17 years old, trained, a head and a half taller, went down onto one knee in the street making a sound like he was genuinely surprised. Naruto looked at him from about 2 feet away, orange jacket, still healing bruise at the corner of his jaw from something else earlier in the week, expression completely level. "I'm not doing this," he said. "You're not worth it." And then he walked away. The genin didn't follow. 3 of the market vendors who'd seen it told the story differently in the telling, but they all agreed on the last part, the way Naruto walked away. Not fast, not showing off, not looking back. Just walking, like the interaction had been a mild inconvenience. The way someone walks when the outcome was never in question. Irika heard the story at a restaurant that evening and sat very still over his bowl of soup. Naruto was in his apartment when the knock came, which was unusual enough that he stood at the door for a second before opening it. People didn't knock on his door. Occasionally someone slid a written complaint under it from the neighbor 3 rooms down who thought Naruto's midnight training was too loud, but actual knocking was rare. He opened it. Hiruzen was standing in the hallway. Not in his formal Hokage robes, in the simple clothes he sometimes wore when he was trying to look like he wasn't the Hokage, which Naruto had always privately thought was a performance that didn't quite work because the Hokage hat-shaped space on his head was just too visible even when it was empty. He had his pipe. He looked older than usual, or maybe Naruto was just looking at him differently. "May I come in?" Hiruzen said. Naruto stepped back from the door. The old man stepped into the apartment and looked around at the orange curtains and the hand-drawn map and the photograph of the red-haired woman and said nothing for a moment. He sat in the chair Naruto offered him without being asked, which was the living room chair that wobbled slightly on the left side, and he didn't complain about the wobble. Naruto sat on the couch. "Something has changed," Hiruzen said. "Lots of things change," Naruto said. "I grew 2 centimeters last month." The old man looked at him. "Naruto." "Something changed," Naruto agreed. "No point in dancing around it." The wolf had been very clear on the subject of deliberate obscurement, not that honesty was a virtue, but that misdirection burned energy that could be used for better things. "About 3 weeks ago." Hiruzen was quiet for a moment. His fingers worked the pipe. "Can you tell me what happened?" "I met both of them," Naruto said. "The fox and the other one." The quality of silence in the room changed. Hiruzen's face did something complicated, relief and dread and guilt in a combination that was specific enough to be interesting. He hadn't known that Naruto knew. He'd hoped, maybe, that it would be longer before this conversation happened. "You know about the second seal," Hiruzen said. "Fenrir told me." Naruto watched the old man's face carefully, the way he'd been watching faces lately, looking for the gap between expression and truth. "He said my father put both of them in me on the same night. That the 2 spirits were supposed to balance each other." He paused. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wasn't sure it would wake," Hiruzen said, which was honest in a way that meant it was also incomplete. "Your father's notes indicated that the wolf spirit might remain dormant for the duration of your childhood. That you might not be aware of it at all until something bad enough happened," Naruto finished. The old man had the grace not to look away. "Yes." Naruto thought about the alley. The rain. The pink water running toward the drain. He thought about the door opening at the bottom of the dark lake and the wolf stepping through in its silver light, sitting like a decision. "He's not dangerous," Naruto said. "Fenrir. I know that's probably what you're worried about. You're thinking 2 spirits, both powerful, both ancient, but he's not like the fox. He doesn't want to destroy anything. What does he want?" Naruto considered this. He'd asked Fenrir the same question 3 days ago, sitting on the roof at 4 a.m. with the village still dark below him, and the wolf had been quiet for a long time before answering. "I want you to be what you are," it had said. "Nothing more." "To teach me," Naruto said. That's what he said. He's been waiting 7 years for the right time to start. Hiruzen looked at him for a long moment. Then he looked at his hands, and Naruto could see him working through calculations, the kind of calculations that old men in positions of power made when something had already happened and the only question remaining was what to do about it now. "Irika-sensei told me about your progress," Hiruzen said finally. "I figured. The council will notice eventually. There are people in this village who already watch you too closely." The old man's voice carried something heavy. "If your abilities become conspicuous too quickly, they're going to notice anyway," Naruto said. "I can't make myself slower or stupider to keep them comfortable." He said it without anger, which was new. A month ago it would have come out sharp, with the jagged edge of someone who'd been pressing on the same bruise for years. Now it was just factual. And I don't plan to. Hiruzen looked at him. Naruto looked back. No, the old man said quietly. I don't suppose you do. He stood, slowly, the way old people stood who were trying not to let the process show. I'm going to assign you a reading list. Supplemental material, outside the standard curriculum. It will come through official channels as an academic enrichment program. There are 2 other students receiving similar material, so it won't be unusual. He paused. Some of the material will be about your father's work. Some of it will be about the history of the wolf spirit. I think you deserve to understand what you are. It was more than Naruto had expected. He hadn't expected much from this conversation, had been braced, honestly, for a speech about hiding his abilities, about being careful, about not drawing attention. He'd prepared several versions of the conversation where he said no to all of those things, politely but without any actual negotiation. This was different. Okay, he said. And Naruto. Hiruzen paused at the door. When the fox is angry, and it will be angry, it has reasons for that anger that predate you. Listen to the wolf. The wolf has a longer view. Kurama's angry because he was sealed against his will, Naruto said. By my dad. Into me. A beat. I'd probably be angry about that too. The Hokage's expression went through something that might have been the closest thing to hope he'd experienced in a long time. He nodded once, said goodnight, and left. Naruto closed the door and stood in his orange apartment with the wobbling chair and the photograph of the red-haired woman and the feeling of 2 ancient presences balanced somewhere deep in his chest, and he thought about what Hiruzen had said about his father's notes. He thought about reading those notes someday. What he'd find there. Whether Minato had been frightened when he did it, or certain, or something in between. He was afraid, Fenrir said, quiet as always. But not of the choice. Of what would happen to you if he made it wrong. Did he make it wrong? Naruto asked. A long pause. The silver light somewhere in the back of his awareness, steady as moonlight through a clear sky. Ask me again in 10 years, the wolf said. By then we'll know. On the other side, much further back, Kurama's fire presence did something Naruto had never felt it do before. It wasn't warmth exactly. It wasn't comfort. It was something more like acknowledgement, a 9-tailed beast with 10,000 years of rage and grief and history quietly, without announcement, settling in for the long watch. Naruto went to bed. He didn't dream of the white forest that night. He dreamed of a red-haired woman laughing, and the sound was so bright and so specific that he held onto it even as he woke, trying to keep it the way you cup water in your hands. It slipped away anyway. They always did. But he remembered the laugh. He remembered the laugh, and he got up, and he went to the roof in the dark, and he started his training. Outside, Konoha breathed around him, the fires and the footsteps and the deep pulse of the old trees, and he stood in the pre-dawn quiet and let the chakra current come, the way the wolf had taught him, stepping into it rather than pushing. Let it move through him, silver and red in the same stream, 2 rivers that had learned to run in the same channel without drowning each other. Behind him to the east, the sky started to go gray at the edges. He stood there and watched the village wake up and thought about all of it, the alley, the spirits, the old man in the wobbling chair, the notes from a father he'd never met, the wolf that had been waiting 7 years to begin. And somewhere, beyond the village wall, the world was going about its enormous and dangerous business, and none of it knew yet what was coming. But Naruto did. He rolled his shoulders, dropped into the stance Fenrir had been correcting for 2 weeks, and started working. Chapter 2, The Shape of the Wild. The thing about being different was that you got used to it before other people did. Naruto had been different his whole life. He'd understood that much from the time he was old enough to notice that shopkeepers watched him differently than they watched other kids, that people on the street made micro-adjustments to their paths when they saw him coming, widening the gap between his body and theirs by a half-step, enough to be deniable but consistent enough that he'd mapped it unconsciously over years of walking the same streets. He'd catalogued all of it the way children catalog things that hurt, not analytically, just stored, packed away in a part of himself that he covered over with noise and motion and the performative brightness that kept people at exactly the distance he needed them. That had changed. Not the difference, he was still different, more so now than ever, in ways that were visible and growing. But the way he carried it had shifted somewhere in the weeks since the alley, and the people around him were having trouble locating the new shape of him. They kept reaching for the Naruto they knew, the one who was predictably loud and predictably compensating, and finding something else instead. Something that didn't fit the space they'd assigned him. It made them uncomfortable. Naruto found that he didn't mind. The reading material came through official channels, as promised, boxed and sealed with the Academy's administrative stamp and addressed to him in Hiruzen's personal handwriting. He collected it from the front desk without ceremony, took it home, and spent the better part of 3 days working through it. Most of it was dense, historical documentation, chakra theory, a partial translation of something Hiruzen had labeled only as ancient text, origin uncertain, but Naruto had discovered somewhere in the last month that his attention didn't slip the way it used to. He could sit with difficult material for hours now without the restless urgency to be somewhere else, doing something louder. The wolf had a lot to do with that. Fenrir's presence had a quality of deep patience that was apparently contagious. "Stop reading the theory," the wolf said on the second evening, from its usual place in the back of his awareness. "Read the history. Theory is someone's attempt to explain what already happened. History is what actually happened. The theory section has the information about how the seals interact," Naruto said. Which was written by a man who had never actually worked with a wolf spirit. His theory is extrapolation from fox behavior, which is wrong in 7 specific ways. A pause. "Skip it." Naruto skipped it. The history section was more interesting anyway. It covered what was known about Fenrir no Shiroi, which turned out to be a complicated combination of not much and quite a lot. Not much in terms of hard documentation. The wolf predated writing systems, predated most of the established chakra frameworks, predated a significant portion of what the shinobi world called ancient history. Quite a lot in terms of mythology, legend, half-translated texts from cultures so old that even their names have been lost. The wolf appeared in fragments, a white hunter from the northern mountains, a spirit that protected certain bloodlines and abandoned others, a presence associated with the moon in dozens of unrelated cultural traditions who'd apparently arrived at the same symbol independently. "You were worshipped," Naruto said, on the third morning, reading a passage from a translated text that described what sounded like religious ceremonies. "Worship is what happens when people can't think of anything more useful to do," Fenrir said. "That's not what it says here. I was there. I am telling you what it actually was." Kurama, from his end of the mindscape, made a sound that was almost amusement. It was the first time Naruto had heard anything resembling amusement from the fox, and it surprised him enough that he looked up from the text. "The fox finds this funny?" Naruto asked. "The fox finds it accurate," Kurama said. "Humans and their ceremonies. You've both been worshipped." "Feared," Kurama corrected. "Worship is fear dressed in better clothes." Naruto sat with that for a moment. Then he went back to the history, because the history was more useful than the philosophy, and he had academy the next morning. The chakra work was becoming a problem. Not in the way problems usually manifested, not failure, not inability. The opposite. Naruto's chakra output had always been massive by any measurement standard, a function of the Kyuubi's reserves bleeding through the seal in ways that were natural rather than deliberate. What was changing now was the quality of it, which was something the Academy's instructional framework wasn't really built to handle. The standard curriculum assumed a progression: learn to feel your chakra, learn to control small amounts, work up gradually. The assumption underneath all of it was that the students' natural reserves were human-scaled. Naruto's were not. On a Tuesday morning in the 3rd month of the school year, they did the leaf-sticking exercise, basic chakra adhesion, every student taping a leaf to their forehead with nothing but controlled chakra output. First week material for students who'd been training at home with their families. Newer students usually took 20 minutes to half an hour. Naruto sat down, placed the leaf, and applied approximately the right amount of chakra. The leaf disintegrated. Not the slow singed dissolution of too much chakra improperly directed. It was there, and then there was a small scattering of fragments drifting to the floor with a smell like something had been struck by lightning, which brought every head in the classroom around to look at him. He picked up another leaf from the pile on the desk. The second one lasted a fraction of a second longer before the same thing happened. By the third leaf he'd adjusted, not by reducing chakra output, because the wolf had been very clear that suppressing the natural flow was counterproductive, but by restructuring the surface distribution, spreading it thin across the leaf's area the way you'd thin a layer of paint to keep it from pooling. The third leaf stayed. He held it there, checked the adhesion, looked up. Half the class was staring at him. Irika was standing very still at the front of the room, holding his clipboard like he'd forgotten it was there. "Good," Irika said, in the tone he used when he was processing something. "That's, yes. Good, Naruto." The girl sitting 2 seats over, Sakura Haruno, who Naruto had peripherally noted as one of the sharper students in the class and the one most likely to ask follow-up questions that the instructors clearly weren't expecting, was looking at him with an expression he hadn't seen on her face before. She was usually watching Sasuke with an intensity that bordered on dedication. This was a different kind of looking. Analytical. Slightly narrowed eyes, the expression of someone mentally rearranging a category that had just been challenged. "What happened to the first two?" she asked. Quietly, not loud enough to be classroom performance. Actually asking. "Too much pressure," Naruto said, equally quiet. "Fixed it." She looked at the scattered fragments on the desk. Back at him. Something shifted in her expression, not warmth, exactly, more like upgrading an assessment. She turned back to her own leaf exercise without another word, but the angle of her attention had changed. Naruto noticed. Filed it. The wolf, from somewhere in the back of his awareness, said, "She sees things clearly when she chooses to look. Remember that." The real test came the following week, in the practical combat assessment. Academy combat assessments were structured to measure specific fundamentals: stance, footwork, basic strike mechanics, the ability to execute 3 standard defensive forms under live pressure. The instructor paired students up, watched 2-minute rounds, graded on form and execution. It wasn't supposed to be real fighting. Everyone understood the difference. Naruto's assessment partner was a kid named Kenta, clan-trained, a year ahead of where he should be technically. He was the kind of student who took the academic combat assessment seriously as a ranking exercise and came in planning to make an impression. He had 4 inches and roughly 10 kilos on Naruto. The round started. Kenta came in fast, real footwork under the academy form, the kind of pressure that usually flustered less prepared students. He read Naruto as a less prepared student and committed to the read. The thing was, Fenrir didn't teach combat theory. The wolf didn't talk about forms or stances or the 5 standard defensive frameworks from the curriculum. What Fenrir taught was something that predated all of those systems, something that existed in the space before a technique was selected, in the quarter second when a body processes threat and chooses response. What Fenrir taught, patiently and consistently and without much commentary, was reading. Not people's expressions or tells. Deeper than that. The specific geometry of a body in motion, the weight distribution, the angle of commitment, the point at which a moving body has invested too much in one direction to redirect without cost. Naruto had been learning to read that geometry for 3 months. He saw Kenta's first move before it was half executed, not as a prediction but as a recognition, the way you recognize a word you've seen 1,000 times. He was already moving while Kenta was still mid-commitment, and the redirect was simple. Not a counterstrike, just a body adjustment, a slight angle change that put Kenta's committed force exactly nowhere useful, and then Kenta was past him and slightly off balance and Naruto just waited. The round lasted 45 seconds. Kenta couldn't land a clean strike. Not because Naruto was faster, exactly, he was fast, but the speed wasn't the point. He was simply never where Kenta was reaching, and it was happening too naturally to be a technique, too consistently to be luck, and by the end Kenta had the expression of someone whose mental model had failed them and hadn't figured out why yet. The instructor running the assessment, a chunin named Daisuke who'd been grading these rounds for 6 years, stopped the timer and looked at his notes. He wrote something. He looked at Naruto. He wrote something else. "Good session," he said. "Uzumaki, I'll need you to stay after." When the other students had filed out, Daisuke sat across from Naruto in the empty assessment room with his notes on the table between them and didn't say anything for a moment. "Who's been training you?" he asked. "Nobody, officially," Naruto said. "Unofficially?" "I've been working on my own." Daisuke looked at him. He was about 30, competent in the flat reliable way of someone who had trained consistently rather than brilliantly. Not the kind of person to be easily impressed. He was clearly deciding something, the way you see a person build to a decision in real time. "Your movement reading is Jonin level," Daisuke said. "I want to be clear about that. That is not something I expected to write in a report about a 7-year-old. He tapped his pen on the table. "Irika-sensei has flagged your overall progress for review. I'm going to add this to the report." "Okay," Naruto said. "You don't have anything to say about that?" "What would I say?" Daisuke considered him. Most students, when told they're performing at a level significantly beyond their peers, say something. They get excited or nervous or they downplay it. You're doing none of those things. Should I be? The chunin made a small sound, somewhere between a laugh and a sigh, and added one more note to his report. "Go to lunch, Uzumaki." Naruto went to lunch. He went to Ichiraku, because he went to Ichiraku for most lunches on days when his finances could support it, and because Tucci and Iam were two of the only people in the village who'd always treated him like an actual person without visible effort. He ordered the miso ramen with extra pork, which was the version he'd been working toward all week, and ate it with the focus it deserved. Iam, refilling his water glass without being asked, she always did, another small piece of evidence that she saw him as a regular person rather than a visitation, paused with the pitcher in her hand. "You look like someone told you good news and you haven't decided how to feel about it yet." "Something like that," Naruto said. "Academy stuff?" "Yeah." She made a sound that communicated understanding and went back to her work without pushing, which was exactly right, and Naruto finished his ramen and paid with the money he'd saved from 3 days of eating the cheaper grocery store noodles at home. On his way back to the academy for the afternoon session, he ran into Sasuke. Not ran into literally, Sasuke was standing outside the academy gate with his hands in his pockets, apparently waiting for something, in the specific posture he adopted when he was early and didn't want to be seen being early. They'd been in the same class since the beginning of the year without much direct contact. Sasuke was the kind of person who didn't bother acknowledging people he didn't consider relevant. He had a clear hierarchy in his head and he lived by it without apparent self-consciousness. He looked at Naruto now, though. Not the quick dismissal he used on most people. He actually looked, the way Sakura had looked that morning, the evaluating kind, from somewhere behind the usual expression. "I heard about the combat assessment," Sasuke said. Naruto stopped walking. And nothing. "I heard about it." A beat. Daisuke-sensei said Jonin-level movement reading. "Did he say that to you or did someone else tell you?" The corner of Sasuke's mouth moved, something that wasn't quite annoyance and wasn't quite being caught out. "Someone else." Word travels fast. It does when it's interesting. Sasuke's dark eyes were doing the assessing thing, moving over Naruto with the particular focus of someone who was deciding whether to update a category. "You've changed." "People change," Naruto said. "I grew 2 centimeters. That's not what I mean." "I know." Naruto looked at him for a moment. Sasuke Uchiha, last loyal member of a massacred clan, carrying grief so dense it had become architecture, Naruto had read that much in him without trying, the wolf's instinct for the load beneath the posture translating easily to this version of reading people. The grief was real and the ambition it fueled was real, and somewhere under both of those things was a kid roughly his own age trying to build himself into something the world would have to acknowledge. Naruto understood that project. Had been running his own version of it for as long as he could remember. "You should come watch one of my morning sessions sometime," Naruto said. "If you're curious." He didn't wait for a response. He went inside. Behind him, Sasuke stood at the gate and said nothing. But Naruto could feel, and it wasn't the wolf's perception exactly, more something that lived between that and his own developing read of people, that Sasuke stood there a beat longer than necessary before following. It was Mizuki who brought everything to a head. Naruto had been watching Mizuki for about a month by the time it happened. Not because he suspected anything specific, though the wolf had noted the instructor's particular energy in ways that were hard to articulate, a kind of surface smoothness that covered something moving and not straightforward underneath. But because Mizuki looked at Naruto differently from Iruka, and not in the way most adults in the village looked at him. Most people's discomfort with Naruto was honest, even if the honesty wasn't pretty. They knew what they felt and they felt it openly, even when they tried to hide it. Mizuki's was something else. Something that smiled at him with a careful warmth that Naruto had clocked as performed from the third time he'd seen it, because genuine warmth, when you'd been starved of it, was something you recognized instantly and couldn't mistake. Performed warmth was something else. Performed warmth meant someone wanted something. The graduation examinations came in the way they always did, a progression of practical and written tests building toward the final practical, the clone jutsu, which had historically been Naruto's sticking point. And it still would have been a sticking point, technically, because the standard clone jutsu was something Naruto couldn't do correctly and had never been able to. The amount of chakra he was working with meant that his clones either came out wrong, collapsed immediately, or occasionally appeared in a brief flash that involved more smoke and noise than a standard clone had any business producing. He'd figured out the shadow clone technique from one of the scrolls Hiruzen had included in the reading package, not described in detail, just referenced in a footnote about advanced techniques that split chakra rather than distributing it. He'd worked it out from the footnote and 2 pages of adjacent theory and 6 weeks of very early morning practice sessions that Fenrir had supervised with the particular combination of patience and bluntness that characterized all of the wolf's instruction. His first successful shadow clone had materialized at 4:47 on a Tuesday morning in late November, standing on the apartment roof in the dark, and both of them, Naruto and the clone, had stood there looking at each other for a confused second before the clone said, in exactly the voice Naruto would have used, and then dispelled. "Interesting technique," Fenrir had said. "Suitable for your reserves. Continue." Continue meaning, make more. He'd made more. He'd made enough more that by the time graduation examinations arrived, he could maintain 6 simultaneously while conducting a conversation about something else entirely, which was not the assignment but demonstrated a related competency. What the assignment required was one clean, functional clone, which he could do easily now. He made his one clone for the examination. It was correct. It held. It looked at the instructors with Naruto's exact expression and then dissolved when he dismissed it. He passed. Iruka gave him his headband with hands that were not entirely steady, and the expression on his face was the kind you see on people who are very happy and also somewhat overwhelmed and also thinking about something larger than the immediate moment. Naruto tied the headband on, and the cool weight of the metal plate against his forehead was better than he'd expected. He didn't make it a performance. He just nodded at Iruka and said thank you, and Iruka grabbed him by the shoulder and said, in a voice that was working hard to stay level, "I'm proud of you." Naruto had been told various versions of this sentence before, usually by Hiruzen, usually in contexts that felt official. This felt different. This felt like what Iam's refilled water glass felt like, natural, no visible effort, just true. He said thank you again, and meant it differently the second time. That night, Mizuki found him. Naruto was on his roof, later than usual, because it was graduation night and he'd given himself permission to stay up and look at the village from above and let it sink in. The headband was still on his forehead. The night was clear for the first time in a week, the kind of clear that follows rain, where the stars looked closer than usual and the air had a cleaned-out quality. Mizuki came up the fire escape. Naruto heard him at the first landing, 3 floors down, the weight distribution wrong for a casual climb, too careful, too measured. He felt the chakra signature a second later, familiar, the academy instructor pattern, but held tight in a way that meant something. He didn't turn around. "I know you're there, Mizuki-sensei," he said. A pause. Then Mizuki came up the last flight and stood on the roof, and his expression in the first second before he reassembled it into the practiced warmth told Naruto everything he needed to know. There was surprise in it. He'd expected to find Naruto oblivious or asleep, and under the surprise, something calculating and flat. "Congratulations on passing," Mizuki said. "Thanks. You must be relieved. After all those years of struggling with the clone technique." He sat on the low parapet at the roof's edge, friendly, relaxed, taking up space with the practiced ease of someone performing comfort. "I imagine it feels like being finally seen. Finally recognized." Naruto said nothing. He watched the village. "There's something I wanted to tell you," Mizuki said. "Something important, about the Kyuubi seal. About what it means. What you're owed." His voice was very carefully warm. "Something the Hokage has been keeping from you. What are you actually trying to get from me?" Naruto said. Another pause. Longer this time. "There's a scroll," Mizuki said, adjusting, the warmth dialing back towards something more direct. "The scroll of seals. Inside it are techniques that could help you understand your own power. Advanced techniques they'd never teach you in the regular curriculum. With your abilities, the things you've been doing this year, imagine what you could. You want me to steal the scroll of seals from the Hokage's office," Naruto said. "Bring it to you. And in return you'll tell me about the fox." He finally turned to look at Mizuki. "That's the plan." The warmth was gone from Mizuki's expression. What replaced it was less performed, and for that reason actually more interesting, the genuine article, the thing that had been moving under the surface smoothness. He was smart and frustrated and had clearly spent a long time on this and was now standing on a roof with a 7-year-old who had just summarized his entire approach in 3 sentences. "You should be more careful about underestimating people," Naruto said. "I've been watching you for a month." "You're a child," Mizuki said, and the friendly cadence was completely gone now. "I'm a child who already knows about the seal. The Hokage told me himself." Naruto watched Mizuki's face work through the new calculation. "And who are you supposed to be delivering the scroll to? Because you're not doing this for yourself. You want to give it to someone, and I'd like to know who." Mizuki had gone very still. The assessment was complete and he'd arrived at a new position. Naruto could see it happening, the shift from manipulation to threat evaluation. He was a Chunin-level shinobi, significantly more physically capable than a 7-year-old, even one who'd apparently startled Daisuke in the combat assessment. He was doing the math. "Don't," Naruto said. "Don't what?" "Whatever you're calculating right now." He looked at the man with the flat, clear attention that the wolf had been sharpening in him for months. Not aggressive. Not threatening. Just perfectly certain. "Go home, Mizuki-sensei. In the morning, I'll tell Irika-sensei that you approached me tonight about the scroll. He'll investigate. What happens after that is between you and the village." A beat. "But right now, on this roof, this is over." Mizuki stared at him. The thing about the wolf's presence, the thing Naruto had noticed in himself over 3 months of it and was only now starting to understand the full dimensions of, was that it didn't express itself loudly. It didn't need to. It was the feeling in a room when something very large and very old turns its attention toward you, the specific quality of being looked at by something that has no doubt about its own position in the hierarchy of the current situation. It moved through his expression and his posture and the particular quality of his stillness without him doing anything deliberate. Mizuki felt it. Whatever he'd been calculating, he stopped. He left. Not fast, trying to preserve something. But he left, and Naruto watched him go down the fire escape and disappear into the street below, and then turn back to the village. Inside, Kurama's presence shifted, the fire in the next room banked and steady. "You should have let me handle that," the fox said. "I did handle it," Naruto said. "I mean with claws." "I know what you mean." A rumble from the fox that might have been frustration or might have been something else. "You will need to report this tonight," Fenrir said. "Not tomorrow. He will run tonight if he believes the window is closing." Naruto nodded. He went downstairs, put his shoes on, and walked to the Hokage's office, because the wolf was right, and walking at night in a cleared-out post-rain village with a forehead protector on for the first time felt exactly as good as it should. Hiruzen, apparently, did not sleep much. He answered the knock himself, took in Naruto's expression, and said, "Come in." "Tell me." Naruto told him. Precisely, sequentially, without embellishment. The month of watching Mizuki. The specific thing Mizuki had said. The name of the scroll. His conclusion about an outside party. Hiruzen listened without interrupting. When Naruto finished, the old man was quiet for a moment, and then he reached for his pipe. Which meant he'd stopped thinking and started worrying, which meant the conclusion Naruto had handed him was correct and more complicated than even Naruto had figured. "The outside party," Hiruzen said carefully. "You believe he was acting as a courier?" "I believe someone told him what to ask for. He wasn't looking to use the scroll himself, he was looking to deliver it." Naruto paused. "Someone who would want those specific sealing techniques. For research, maybe." Hiruzen's hands stilled on the pipe. Naruto watched his face. "You know who it is." "I have suspicions," Hiruzen said carefully. "Suspicions I have been trying to confirm for 2 years." He looked at Naruto with an expression that was moving towards something honest and clearly costing him something. "I want you to understand that what you've done tonight, the patience, the observation, the way you handled the confrontation, that is exceptional. In a shinobi of any age." "Fenrir helped," Naruto said honestly. "Nevertheless." The old man looked at him. "I think your team placement is going to be a problem for whoever receives you." Naruto made a sound that was almost a laugh. "Because I'll be the most difficult person on the team?" "Because you will be the clearest seeing person on the team," Hiruzen said. "And that is its own kind of difficulty." He began writing orders, for Mizuki's detention, for a sweep of his known associates, standard protocol. "Go home. Sleep. Tomorrow begins a new part of your life." Naruto went home. He took off his shoes, lay down on his bed, and looked at the ceiling. "Is that who it is?" he asked. "The outside party. Is it who the Hokage is thinking of?" Fenrir was quiet for a moment. "I don't know names," the wolf said. "I know hunger. I know the particular shape of wanting that comes from a person who has decided they are owed everything. I have felt that shape in the world before." A pause. "It is close." "How close?" "Closer than the Hokage knows," the wolf said. "Closer than it was a year ago." The silver light in the back of his awareness was steady, like moonlight, like something that didn't fluctuate with wind or weather. "Pay attention to who studies you, Naruto. Not who hates you, not who fears you. Who studies you. That is where the real danger comes from." Naruto thought about that for a long time, staring at the ceiling in the dark. On his forehead, the new headband was a cool weight, the metal plate catching the faint light from the street below. Outside, somewhere in Konoha, Mizuki was already running. And somewhere further, past the village walls and beyond the checkpoints, something ancient and hungry had been waiting a long time, and had just received news that was very, very interesting. Naruto didn't know that part yet. But the wolf did. The wolf knew the scent of something circling, and it lifted its enormous silver head in the back of Naruto's awareness and looked toward the dark outside the village with eyes that were older than the walls that contained it. Not yet, it thought. But soon. Naruto fell asleep. The headband stayed on. Chapter 3, Team 7, rewritten. The team assignments came on a Thursday morning in early spring, posted on a board outside the main classroom with the particular bureaucratic indifference of official documents that were going to change people's lives. Most of the students crowded around it immediately, the kind of controlled pushing that happened when 12-year-olds were trying to perform casualness about something they actually cared enormously about. Naruto read his assignment from the back of the crowd, over 3 sets of shoulders, because he could see fine from there and didn't need to be at the front. Team 7. Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno. Jonin Instructor, Kakashi Hatake. He stood there for a moment with the information settling. Sasuke he'd been watching for months, the grief and ambition architecture, the genuine ability underneath the performance, the specific way he moved in combat that said he'd been drilling fundamentals since he could walk. Working with Sasuke would be interesting in the way that friction is interesting, the kind that either starts a fire or sharpens an edge depending on how you managed it. Sakura had been quietly upgrading her assessment of him since the chakra sensitivity exercise. They hadn't talked much, she was still spending considerable attention on Sasuke, which Naruto read as a combination of genuine interest and a social identity she'd built around that interest and hadn't yet decided to revise. But she was sharp. She catalogued things. In a fight she'd be a liability for exactly as long as it took her to understand what was actually happening, and then she'd be something else. Kakashi Hatake he knew by reputation, which in Konoha meant you knew the surface story and nothing underneath it. Copy ninja. Sharingan. Friend of the Fourth Hokage. The information about that last part had arrived in the reading material Hiruzen had sent, buried in a footnote about the third succession decisions, and Naruto had noted it and not mentioned it to anyone because the noting was enough for now. The wolf copy ninja, Kurama said from somewhere in his left peripheral awareness, which was where the fox had taken to positioning itself lately, not central, not looming, just present like a fire you could feel the heat of without looking at. You know him? Naruto asked. Quietly, walking away from the board while the others were still pushing at each other. I know of him. His chakra signature was present the night of the sealing. He was nearby. A pause heavy with something Naruto couldn't identify. He will recognize something in you is wrong before the others do. Wrong is one word for it. It is his word, Kurama said. Not mine. Fenrir said nothing, but the silver quality of his attention was present, the wolf watching the edges of the new territory the way it always did when something new was beginning. Naruto went to class, sat in the back, and waited for the rest of the morning to finish. The Jonin instructors came in the afternoon, collecting their teams from the classroom with varying degrees of enthusiasm. Most of them introduced themselves in the doorway or the hallway, said something about meeting times and locations, and moved on. Kakashi was the last to arrive and he was 45 minutes late. He came in reading a book, which Naruto recognized, orange cover, the particular worn spine quality of a frequently read volume, and leaned in the doorway with the specific energy of someone who had somewhere else to be and was mildly puzzled about why they were here instead. Team 7, he said, not looking up from the book. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura were the only ones still in the room. Naruto had been sitting sideways in his chair with his legs over the armrest, watching a spider construct something elaborate in the upper corner of the window. Sasuke was at his desk, straight-backed, waiting with the precise posture of someone who'd been trained to wait and hadn't decided how he felt about being made to do it. Sakura had been standing at the window looking at the street below with an expression that said she'd been trying to decide whether to be annoyed or patient and hadn't fully committed to either. Roof, Kakashi said. 10 minutes. He was gone before anyone could respond. On the roof, in the spring afternoon with the village spread below them and the wind moving through with enough warmth in it to promise summer, Kakashi finally put the book away. He looked at them, a real look, not the dismissive scan he'd used in the doorway, and something in the look changed when it reached Naruto. Nothing visible to the others, probably. A fraction of a second, something behind the single exposed eye, an adjustment in the quality of attention. He'd felt it. Whatever he'd felt. Introductions, Kakashi said. Names. Likes. Dislikes. Dreams. The usual. He looked at Sakura. You first. Sakura introduced herself the way she'd been preparing to introduce herself, which was thorough and slightly too composed for an off-the-cuff introduction. Likes, studying, precision, getting things right. Dislikes, people who didn't take things seriously. Dream, to be a great medical ninja, and here she glanced at Sasuke in a way she probably thought was subtle. Sasuke went next. Uchiha Sasuke. No particular likes. Dislikes, several. Dream, the word got a very slight pause, an ambition. To restore his clan and kill a certain man. He said the last part with the flatness of something said so many times it had worn its own groove, the kind of groove that said this was both completely sincere and also a performance of sincerity, the two things coexisting without contradiction. Naruto, Kakashi said. Naruto looked at him. Uzumaki Naruto. I like ramen, early mornings, and people who say what they actually mean. I dislike people who decide they know what I am before they've watched me for 10 minutes. He paused. My dream is to become Hokage. But not for the reasons most people think. What reasons do most people think? Kakashi asked. They think it's because I want to be recognized. Validated. Prove something to the village. He shrugged. That's part of it. But the main reason is that someone with this much power is eventually going to have to make decisions that affect this village, and I'd rather it be me making them consciously than someone else making them in response to me. The silence that followed was a different quality than the silence after Sakura and Sasuke. Kakashi was looking at him with the single-eye focus of someone who had just received unexpected information and was doing something with it in real time. Sasuke was looking at him too. Sakura's expression had shifted. She dropped the composed introduction posture entirely and was looking at him with the narrowed eyes cataloging look she'd been using since the leaf exercise. Interesting, Kakashi said. The word was completely neutral, which meant it was completely sincere. Okay. The three of you are not officially genin yet. Sakura made a sound. Sasuke's jaw tightened slightly. Tomorrow morning. Training ground 7. 6 a.m. A test. He reached into his vest and produced 2 small bells on a short cord, held them up where the afternoon sun caught the metal. 2 bells. 3 of you. The one who doesn't have a bell by noon doesn't eat lunch, it'll be tied to the memorial stone where you can look at it. Fail the test entirely and you go back to the academy. He looked at them for a moment, the book already coming back out. Don't be late, he said, and left. Sasuke looked at the space Kakashi had occupied. It's an individual test. The bells create competition, whoever performs best gets one. That's one reading, Naruto said. Sasuke looked at him. What's the other one? I don't know yet. Naruto stood up, stretched, looked at the village below. I'll think about it tonight. You could think about it together, Sakura said. Both of them looked at her. She had her arms crossed and her chin slightly up, the posture of someone making a choice they just committed to. I'm not saying combine strategies, I'm saying if you both think you figured it out independently and you're wrong in the same way, you might not catch it. A second perspective is a resource. There was a pause. Naruto looked at her. The wolf's attention in the back of his mind was that quality of something noticing something worth noticing. She's right, Naruto said. Sasuke looked between them. A second passed, the kind where you could see the cost of what came next. Fine, he said. Not here. I need to eat first. They ended up at a chiraku, which had been Naruto's idea and had prompted a specific expression from Sasuke, not objection, just mild surprise at finding himself at a ramen stand with 2 people he'd considered background figures 2 months ago. Iam brought extra napkins without being asked and very carefully did not make a face about the unusual social combination. They talked for an hour. Not about feelings, not about teamwork in any abstract sense, about the actual test. The bells. The math of 3 people, 2 bells, 1 jonin who had the only copy ninja Sharingan in the village and had been trained by the yellow flash. He's going to beat any of us individually without effort, Sakura said, working through it systematically. The bells are a misdirection, they're making us think about taking them from him, but that might not be the actual condition. The actual condition might be demonstrating something about how we work together, Naruto said. In which case going for the bells individually is the wrong answer. Sakura looked at the steam rising from her bowl. But working together 3-on-1 might also be the wrong answer. Why? Sasuke asked. Because he's a jonin. 3 academy graduates working together don't beat Hatake Kakashi. We'd just be failing as a unit instead of failing individually. She paused. The actual condition might be something else entirely. Something about recognizing what the real problem is. It might just be a fight, Sasuke said. And the lesson is that it's possible to take the bells if you're good enough. Naruto ate his ramen and let them talk, and Fenrir was quiet in the back of his awareness, not guiding, just present, the way the wolf was present during a tracking exercise, not steering but aware of everything. I think it's both, Naruto said eventually. They both looked at him. I think we're supposed to try. Genuinely, fully, with everything we have. Because if we don't actually try, he won't see what he needs to see about us. But I also think the last condition, the thing that passes or fails the test, has nothing to do with whether we physically have the bells. Then what is it? Sakura asked. I'll know when we get there, Naruto said. I'm usually better at reading situations live than in advance. Sasuke made a sound. Not agreement, not dismissal, a sound that acknowledged the answer without endorsing it. He ate his ramen. Outside, the evening light was going orange over the rooftops. Same training ground, Sasuke said when they left. Same time. Don't be late. He said it like the entire evening's conversation had been a transaction, which was his way of managing the fact that he'd actually found it useful. Naruto went home and slept well. Training ground 7 at 5:58 in the morning had a specific quality, dew still on the grass, the light still going sideways through the trees, the sound of birds that were a different subset than the midday birds, earlier and more territorial. Naruto arrived first and stood at the 3 posts in the clearing center and looked at the space, reading the geometry of it the way the wolf had taught him to read a space before committing to it. Sight lines. Cover. Distance from post to tree line. The creek visible through the eastern trees, which would be relevant for sound masking. Sakura arrived at exactly 6. Sasuke arrived at 6:02, which for Sasuke was probably the equivalent of punctual given that he'd come from further away. They stood in a loose cluster near the posts and waited. Kakashi arrived at 7:30, reading his book. You're late, Sakura said. I got lost, Kakashi said pleasantly. A black cat crossed my path and I had to find a different route. Naruto watched him. The single I was doing something, moving through the 3 of them with a speed that looked casual and wasn't, cataloging, the way Naruto had started to catalog but faster and with 20 years of field experience behind it. He felt the assessment pass over him and saw Kakashi's eye pause for the fraction of a second that meant something had registered. Rules, Kakashi said. Come at me with the intention of actually taking the bells. No holding back. He reached up and clipped the 2 bells to his vest. The one without a bell goes back. Starts at, he glanced at the sky, now. The 3 of them scattered. That was automatic, the right first move regardless of any strategy. Dispersing prevented a single technique from taking all 3 out, forced the opponent to track multiple angles. Naruto went into the trees to the east and moved through them fast, and the creek was right where he'd estimated, and he crossed it dry on a low-hanging branch and came around a long way, reading Kakashi's likely position from the sounds of the clearing, the specific absence of sound that meant someone was there and still. Don't engage first, Fenrir said. Watch him move. 3 seconds of his movement tells you more than any amount of planning. In the clearing, Sasuke came out of the tree line in a fast run with 3 shuriken thrown ahead of him as a velocity check, and Kakashi moved. Naruto watched from the tree line, and 3 seconds of watching Kakashi move gave him exactly what the wolf had promised. Not the Sharingan, which Kakashi hadn't activated yet, his baseline movement, the specific weight distribution, the way he turned the shuriken deflection into the beginning of a reposition rather than a completed defensive action. He was fast. He was technically flawless. And he was doing something interesting, not fighting at full capacity yet, measuring, the same thing Naruto had been doing. He was testing how they moved before deciding what they needed to see. Naruto moved. He came in from the east while Sasuke had Kakashi's attention from the north and released 4 shadow clones from the trees at different approach vectors simultaneously, which was not in the standard academy curriculum and which produced a very brief flicker in Kakashi's movement, a half-step check, just enough to say this is unexpected, before the Jonin dispersed all 4 clones with a single wind technique that sent leaves and smoke in a flat pattern across the clearing. Naruto, the real one, was already inside the dispersal pattern, under the line of the wind technique, and he'd gotten within 3 meters of Kakashi when the Jonin turned and looked at him with the single exposed eye and something genuinely considering in it. Kakashi's hand moved. Naruto went sideways with it, not the direction Kakashi expected, which he could tell because the second technique, a redirecting grab, closed on the air where Naruto had been and not where Naruto was. He used the mist to get behind Kakashi, which was one of those moments that felt slower than it was and which didn't result in a bell because Kakashi's recovery was faster than the gap Naruto had to work with. He went back into the trees. From the other side, Sakura had gotten to the northern tree line and was running what looked like a distraction pattern, threading through Kakashi's sight lines at intervals, keeping herself visible without committing to an approach, and Naruto understood what she was doing. Not trying to get the bell herself right now but staying present and active enough to split Kakashi's attention, creating fractions of a second across multiple directions. Smart. The most strategically sound use of her current capability level. Sasuke was going for the bell again, direct approach, and Naruto could see what Sasuke was doing with his eyes. The Sharingan wasn't active, they hadn't developed it yet, but Sasuke was doing something adjacent with his observation, tracking micromovements and building a prediction model in real time, the clan training showing through in the quality of his footwork during the attempt. Kakashi blocked the attempt, redirected Sasuke with an efficiency that was almost gentle, and had the book out for approximately 1 second before Sakura's distraction pass from the north made him put it away again. Naruto watched all of this from the trees and felt both his residents watching with him. "He's not using the Sharingan yet," Naruto said quietly. "He doesn't need to," Kurama said. "He's measuring whether you can make him need to." "Can we?" asked the wolf. Fenrir was quiet for a moment. Then, together. "Not as a unit, you are not a unit yet. But simultaneous, from angles that require simultaneous responses." A pause. "Make him choose." Naruto moved to where he could see Sasuke through the trees without Kakashi in the sightline. No signals, they hadn't established any signals. He had to do this differently. He created a single shadow clone, sent it to the northern tree line where Sakura was, and had it hold up 2 fingers. 2 count. Then both. Sakura saw it. Her expression said she'd processed it within 2 seconds. She nodded. The clone went to Sasuke. Same signal. Sasuke looked at it. Looked at Kakashi in the clearing. Made the calculation. Nodded once, very slightly, which for Sasuke was enthusiastic agreement. They moved at the count. Naruto from the east, Sasuke from the north with real killing intent that Naruto could feel like a change in air pressure. The Uchiha wasn't holding back now, the grief and ambition architecture fully deployed into the approach, and Sakura from the west at the same moment, and Kakashi had 3 real approaches at 3 distinct angles arriving in under a second. The Sharingan came out. The single red eye blazed alive, and even from 15 meters away Naruto felt the quality of it, the gathering of information that happened in that eye was like a physical thing, like a current in the air. Kakashi moved in 3 directions in the space of 2 seconds, deflecting each approach with a precision that was almost beautiful, and none of them got the bell, but Sakura's reach passed within 4 inches of it and Kakashi used a genuine hand seal for the first time, which meant something. They were in the tree line again, breathing harder. "He's smiling," Fenrir said. Naruto looked toward the clearing. Kakashi was standing in the center with the bell still on his vest and the Sharingan still active and the book apparently forgotten entirely, and the mask made expression hard to read, but the single red eye had a quality that was, the wolf was right. Whatever the eye equivalent of a smile was. They tried 3 more times. The second and third approaches got closer. The fourth, a sequence Naruto had put together while recovering between rounds, feint from the north, real approach from below through a channel in the roots, Sasuke's fire technique as cover, Sakura pulling the bell from the distraction Naruto created, came within a finger's width. Noon arrived. Kakashi had them sit at the posts, produced a bento box from somewhere, and tied the third portion to the post with a length of cord as promised while he sat across from them and ate with the particular equanimity of someone who was watching something with interest. Naruto looked at the tied-up lunch. Sasuke was breathing carefully through his nose, the specific quality of controlled frustration. Sakura was processing, working through what had happened with the systematic attention she brought to everything. "Tell me what you think the test was about," Kakashi said. A pause. "Taking the bells," Sasuke said. "You said that. What do you actually think?" Kakashi looked at him with the Sharingan still barely active, just a faint glow. "Not what you assumed going in. What do you think now?" Sasuke was quiet. "Teamwork," Sakura said. "But not obvious teamwork. You wanted to see if we'd recognize when individual capability had a ceiling and shift to coordinated effort." She paused. "Which we did. Partway through. And the bell design? 3 people, 2 bells. It guaranteed one person would be left out if we treated it as a competition," she said. "Which meant anyone who tried to win individually was already thinking about it wrong." Kakashi looked at Naruto. "You structured it so that succeeding individually was the wrong goal, but you still needed us to try individually first," Naruto said. "Because how someone tries when they know they're outmatched tells you more than how they perform when they have an advantage. You needed to see how we moved, how we read, what we did when the obvious approach stopped working." He paused. "And the last condition has nothing to do with the bells." Kakashi waited. "You were going to pass whoever showed they could prioritize the mission over their own position," Naruto said. "If one of us had the bell and gave it to someone else because the team needed it more, that's the answer. If all 3 of us refused to take the lunch because the rules said one person goes without but all 3 of us eating meant the team stayed functional, eat," Kakashi said. Sakura blinked. "What? Share the food. All 3 of you eat." He snapped the cord on the bento at the post with one finger. "Those who break the rules in the right situation are interesting. Those who follow rules meant to create division when their team needs them to do otherwise are useless." His eye moved across all 3 of them. "You pass." Sasuke looked at the food for a moment. Then he reached across and took a portion without ceremony, which was the Uchiha equivalent of visible relief. They ate. Naruto ate his portion and looked at Kakashi over the top of it, and Kakashi looked back, and there was a thing happening in that exchange that neither of them addressed. The Jonin knew something was different. He didn't know what yet. He was going to find out, and he was going to do it in the way that people like Kakashi found things out, not by asking directly, but by watching. Naruto didn't mind being watched. The wolf had taught him that being watched was just someone else paying attention, and attention was information running in both directions. "What do you know about the Kyuubi?" Kakashi asked. Casually, conversationally, like it was a natural next topic after discussing bell tests. He wasn't looking at Naruto when he said it, he was looking at his own portion of the bento. A silence fell on the clearing. Sasuke's chopsticks paused. Sakura went very still in the particular way of someone who was watching a conversation more carefully than they were participating in it. Quite a bit, actually, Naruto said. Kakashi did look at him then. That's so. Quite a bit more than I knew a year ago. He held Kakashi's gaze. You were there that night, weren't you? When it was sealed. A long pause. The birds in the tree line were doing their midday shift, the morning ones retreating, a different group taking the canopy. Somewhere behind the silence was the sound of the creek and the distant village. Kakashi said. Did you know about both of them? Another pause. Longer. Kakashi set down his portion carefully. Minato told me about the fox. He had 40 seconds. A pause that carried something heavier than the others. He didn't mention anything else. Two things were sealed, Naruto said. The fox, and something older. My father made the decision alone, I think. He might not have had time to explain it to anyone. He watched Kakashi's face, reading it with the layered attention he'd spent months developing, not just expression, not just tell, but the architecture of what someone was holding. What he read was, genuine shock, carefully contained, under which was something that looked like grief moving through the specific shape of a question, why didn't he tell me, and underneath that, the beginning of a new calculation. What is the second thing? Kakashi asked. Quietly. Something very old. Not demonic. It's been teaching me. Naruto shrugged. Kakashi-sensei, I'm not asking you to understand all of it right now. I'm just telling you so that when you see things that seem wrong in how I move or respond or do things, you know why and you don't have to investigate quietly. He paused. I'd rather have you informed than curious. Kakashi looked at him for a long time. Something moved through the single visible eye that was more complex than Naruto had words for yet. Something that involved loss and recognition and the particular weight of a person who has carried something alone for years and is looking at the evidence that they didn't fully know what they were carrying. All right, he said. All right? Sakura said. It's a lot of information, Kakashi said pleasantly. I'm processing it. He stood, brushed off his vest, looked at all three of them. Tomorrow. This training ground. 8 a.m. Bring your gear, eat before you come, and Sasuke, a brief glance at the Uchiha, fire techniques are effective but you're broadcasting the hand seals 3 moves in advance. Work on that tonight. He looked at Sakura. The distraction pattern was excellent. Develop it into something that can create a real opening, not just a delay. He looked at Naruto. The shadow clones were a surprise. Use that. Things that surprise me are worth developing. He paused, the eye doing something. Also, the movement reading. I want to watch it happen at full speed. Come in early. How early? Naruto asked. 7. I'll be there at 6. Kakashi made a sound that was definitely a smile under the mask and walked away through the trees toward the village. Sasuke looked at Naruto. The architecture of the Uchiha had shifted slightly, something had been reorganized in the internal structure, not visible in expression but present in the posture, in the angle of attention. He looked at Naruto like he was seeing something he'd been told about and now understood. The movement reading, Sasuke said. In the combat assessment. That's what Daisuke-sensei meant. Yeah. How? I'll explain it sometime. Naruto stood, stretched. Not today. Today I need to eat more ramen because one portion of bento is not enough. Sakura made a sound that was the beginning of a laugh, mostly suppressed. She covered it by collecting her things. Ichiraku, she said, and the word had the quality of someone testing a new habit. Obviously, Naruto said. Sasuke said nothing. He walked in the direction of Ichiraku, which was the same as saying yes, and they went through the spring afternoon along the academy path with the village moving around them, and it was the first time Team 7 existed as a social unit rather than an administrative one, and it wasn't momentous or dramatic. It was just 3 people walking to ramen. Which was, Naruto thought, probably the right way for important things to start. He'd been a full genin for 6 days when the first real sign of the thing circling outside the village made itself visible. It came as a report. He heard it secondhand, the way you heard things in Konoha when you were 7 and a genin and therefore officially too low-ranked to attend briefings. A team of rain ninja had crossed the southern border the previous night, moved through a patrol zone without triggering any of the standard alert seals, and been found by a secondary patrol in the morning. 3 of them, jonin ranked by their gear and capabilities, all neutralized. Not dead, unconscious and stripped of all intelligence materials, which was methodical in a way that dead bodies weren't. The unusual part, the part that went through the rumor channels fastest and with the most distortion, was what the patrol had found on the lead rain ninja, a note, written in precise characters on a thin strip of rice paper, that said simply, "Interesting. How long until you're ready?" Nothing else. No signature. No indication of who it was addressed to. Hiruzen received the note personally, from what Naruto could piece together. And from what Naruto could piece together further, through Fenrir's particular sensitivity to the emotional states of people near him, which had become more refined over months of practice, the Hokage had held the note for a long time before putting it away, and the quality of what he felt holding it was something that sat between dread and recognition. Someone had been watching Konoha. Watching specifically, not generally. Watching for something to be ready. The shape of wanting, Fenrir said when Naruto sat on his roof that night and told the wolf what he'd heard. "What does it want?" Naruto asked. "What people like that always want," the wolf said. "To possess what they can't be. To take what they can't build." The silver eyes in the back of his awareness, steady as always, looking outward. There is a human who has looked at you through someone else's eyes. Measured you. Made a decision. Orochimaru, Naruto said. It wasn't entirely a conclusion he'd built from logic. It was partly logic and partly the way the wolf said human with that specific quality of something that had been in the world long enough to recognize types. Mizuki's outside contact. The wolf was quiet for a moment that felt like confirmation. Naruto looked at the village below him, lit up in the evening with the warm domestic colors of 100 windows, and thought about what it meant for something like Orochimaru to be interested in him. Not in the Kyuubi specifically. Orochimaru had left Konoha before Naruto was born, had presumably had years to develop interest in Jinchuriki if that was his direction. This was different. This was the interest the wolf had described, the kind that came from studying. Someone had told him about the second seal. And whoever had told him had put a value on it that Orochimaru found compelling enough to send an intermediary, watch the result, and leave a note. He felt something settle in him, not fear. Not the jagged alertness of someone who'd received a threat. More like the specific clarity that came when a situation became properly defined. A shape he could work with. "He's going to come eventually," Naruto said. "Yes. For me specifically. For what you carry. The distinction will matter to him. It should also matter to you." A pause. Being wanted for what you are and being wanted for what you contain are different situations. One can be engaged with. The other cannot. Naruto thought about that. What do I do between now and eventually? The wolf's presence in his awareness had that quality of ancient patience, like something that had navigated 10,000 years of exactly this kind of question. Get better, it said. Faster than he expects. And don't be where he thinks you'll be. I'm always going to be in Konoha. I'm a genin. I don't mean physically. The wolf looked outward, toward the dark past the walls. Be further ahead than he plans for. Make his model of you obsolete before he uses it. Naruto sat on the roof for a while longer, the night moving around him, the two presences inside him both oriented now in the same direction, the fox's fire and the wolf's silver light pointing toward the same horizon. Tomorrow, Kakashi wanted him at 7 for early training. He'd be there at 6. He'd be there at 5 if the morning cooperated. He had work to do. Chapter 4, The Wolf Runs the Mission to Wave Country started as a C rank. That was the official classification, escort duty, 1 client, 2-week travel window, low threat assessment. The client was a bridge builder named Tazuna, who arrived at the mission briefing room smelling like sake and carrying a pole over his shoulder with the specific body language of someone who was accustomed to being underestimated and had decided to lean into it rather than push against it. He looked at Team 7 the way adults looked at genin teams doing escort missions, the slightly nervous assessment of a person who'd paid for professional protection and received 3 children and a man with a book. His eyes moved over Sakura, over Sasuke, and landed on Naruto, and stayed there a fraction longer than the others. Naruto looked back at him with the level attention he'd been developing for almost a year now, not aggressive, just present, and something in Tazuna's expression made a small adjustment. Not comfort exactly. Something more like recalibration. Kakashi ran the briefing with his usual economy, route, timeline, threat assessment at current classification level, standard escort protocols. Naruto listened to all of it and simultaneously listened to Fenrir, who had been doing something since Tazuna walked into the room, something low and attentive in the back of his awareness like a dog lifting its head at a sound too far off for human ears. He's carrying more than he's saying, the wolf said. I know, Naruto said internally. More fear than an old man with a difficult construction project should carry. Also no. The sake is for the fear. Not a habit. Naruto watched Tazuna through the remainder of the briefing with updated understanding. The client was lying about the threat level. Not maliciously, or not only maliciously, but practically, the way a person lied when they knew the truth would close the door and the door was the last door they had. He needed this escort. He couldn't afford an A rank. So he'd submitted paperwork that would get approved. Naruto didn't say anything in the briefing room. Kakashi would know, or would find out. And if Kakashi was the kind of jonin who ended the mission when the real parameters became clear, Naruto would have something to say about it. But he'd wait and see. They left at dawn the next morning, through the southern gate with the mist coming in off the fields and the road stretching ahead of them into the gray, Tazuna walking in the middle of their formation with the practiced discomfort of a man being professionally protected for the first time. Sakura walked on his left, Sasuke on his right. Naruto moved between positions, front to flank to rear in a rotation that wasn't assigned, just natural, the wolf's instinct for territorial reading extending to the formation around a package, checking angles without announcing it. Kakashi noticed. He always noticed. Over 2 weeks of early training sessions, Naruto had come to understand that Kakashi's apparent inattention was a performance of the highest professional caliber. He saw everything, catalogued everything, and chose what to respond to with a selectiveness that was itself a form of communication. When he responded to something Naruto did, it meant something different than when he let it pass. The letting pass was often the more significant response. He let the formation rotation pass. Which meant he approved of it. The attack came on the second day. They were on a dirt road through a low valley, mid-morning, the mist still hanging in the lower ground between the tree lines. Naruto was on the right flank and he felt the change in the air before he saw anything, not a chakra signature, because whoever had set this up was disciplined, but something more physical. The absence of birds in a 50-meter stretch ahead that had birds in it on both sides. A quality of stillness that was held rather than natural. 2, Fenrir said. Water technique users. Chained. Naruto had his hand up in the stop signal before the thought was fully conscious, the gesture coming from somewhere below deliberation, and Kakashi went still immediately and Sakura pulled Tazuna left off the road in the same motion and Sasuke dropped into a defensive stance facing forward. 2 chains came out of the puddles on the road. They were fast, genuine fast, coordinated and simultaneous, the kind of technique that worked on people who were paying attention because most people paying attention still needed 2 seconds to process what they were seeing. Naruto was already moving laterally when the chains deployed and he watched them snake across the road and clash against each other in the empty space where the team had been standing and then heard the click of the mechanism designed to meet resistance, to meet someone's wrists. They met nothing. 2 shinobi in rain gear came out of the tree lean fast, recovering from the miss, and they were good. Naruto could see that immediately, the recovery speed, the transition from trap to direct engagement without a visible gap, the hand seals running simultaneously for a follow-up water technique. They were coordinated in the way of people who'd worked together for years, each one moving with the implicit knowledge of where the other was going to be. He also saw that they were looking at Kakashi. That was the mistake. Reasonable mistake. Kakashi was the evident threat, the Jonin, the obvious primary target for mission abort level engagement. But they'd assessed the team by rank and age and made the calculation that the three children were secondary problems, to be managed after the primary was handled. Naruto came in from the left while they were making that calculation. He wasn't using the wolf's full presence yet. Fenrir had been clear about that, in the way Fenrir was clear about everything. The full integration of the wolf's power was something that needed to be built toward, not grabbed at. But what he was using, what had been developing over 8 months of before-dawn training and patient systematic work, was the reading ability fully deployed with the physical conditioning that had been improving steadily alongside it. The right-side shinobi saw him at the last moment and redirected, fast, genuinely fast. The redirect was impressive, but the redirect was what Naruto had expected, and the angle he'd approached from meant the redirect opened the left side, and he didn't need a full hit, he needed contact and leverage in 3 seconds. He got 2 of those. What he did in those 2 seconds with the geometry of a full-grown shinobi who outweighed him by 40 kilos was technically not in any academy curriculum. Fenrir had not taught him a throw, had not taught him a hold, had not taught him a technique. The wolf had spent months teaching him to read bodies in motion and to understand the specific physics of committed weight, and what he did with that knowledge was less a technique and more an application of it, using the redirected momentum to collapse the man's base, getting inside the arm angle, creating the kind of instability that a body couldn't correct fast enough because it was already past the point of correction. The shinobi went down. Not incapacitated, just briefly interrupted, but the interruption broke the coordination and Kakashi handled the second one in the time the first was recovering. And then both men were restrained on the road in a professional silence that Kakashi maintained until he confirmed the bindings and stood up and looked at Naruto with the single eye, doing something that it did when the information it had received was genuinely surprising. That was a throw, Kakashi said. Kind of, Naruto said. Where did you learn it? I didn't learn it. I read him. Kakashi looked at him. The eye was doing the thing again. He turned to the restrained shinobi on the left and crouched down. Who sent you? The man said nothing. Kakashi asked 2 more times in different ways and got the same nothing, and then produced a small seal that Naruto hadn't seen before and pressed it against the man's forearm, and the man stopped, not saying anything so fast it was almost funny. Gato, the man said. We're contracted to Gato. Tazuna, from the road's edge where Sakura had positioned him, made a sound. Kakashi looked at Tazuna. Then back at the man. For what specific objective? Stop the bridge. Stop anyone helping him build it. He glanced at Tazuna with the flat regard of a professional who was annoyed at being in this situation more than afraid of it. The builder dies, the escort dies, no bridge. Kakashi stood. He looked at Tazuna for a long moment. Tazuna had the expression of a man who had known this conversation was coming and had not figured out how to have it gracefully. The mission is a C rank, Kakashi said. Organized opposition with confirmed financial backing and specific liquidation objectives is not C rank territory. I know, Tazuna said. He didn't make excuses. That raised him slightly in Naruto's estimation. Regulations say we abort and reassign. I know that too. Tazuna looked at the road ahead, toward the direction of the sea that wasn't visible yet but was implied by the quality of the light. There's no money for a higher rank. The village has nothing left. Gato has taken everything over 2 years, the fishing industry, the trade routes, the warehouses. The bridge is the only thing left. If I don't finish it, he stopped. Not for effect. Just stopped, the way people stopped when they ran into the actual size of what they were carrying. Naruto looked at Kakashi. The Jonin had the book out, which was his processing posture rather than his dismissal posture. There was a difference, a slight one, in the angle of the hold. We continue, Naruto said. Everyone looked at him. The mission parameters changed without our knowledge or consent, which is a violation of the contract. We have grounds to abort. He said it calmly, laying out the facts. We also have a man whose village is being strangled by a criminal organization and whose only remaining option just walked into an ambush and came out the other side. The threat level is established. We know what we're dealing with now. He looked at Kakashi. We continue. I agree, Sakura said. Sasuke said nothing. He was looking at the road ahead, toward Wave Country, and the set of his jaw said he was in. Kakashi lowered the book. He looked at all three of them for a moment, then at Tazuna. We continue, he said. At my discretion, the mission can be aborted at any point if the threat exceeds our capacity. Understood? Tazuna nodded, fast, with the gratitude of someone who was trying not to show how much they'd needed to hear that. They left the two restrained shinobi tied to a tree with a location note attached for the nearest patrol and moved on. That night they camped in a tree lean east of the road, and Kakashi took first watch and Naruto took second, and in the deep watch hours of a forest night with the others asleep and Kakashi technically asleep in the way that Jonin were never actually asleep, Naruto sat against a tree and let himself sink into the dual awareness that he'd been developing, the normal sensory read of his immediate surroundings and underneath it the wolf's older, deeper current, which processed the forest like a language rather than a collection of data. There's something else ahead, he said. Quietly, to Fenrir. Yes. Bigger than the chain users. Significantly. A pause. Sword. Large. A user who has found a way to make water an extension of will rather than a medium for techniques. Another pause, this one longer, the quality of an ancient being encountering something it found worth noting. And something else. Something small and cold that moves like water and thinks like a weapon. Two of them. Working together. The smaller one serves the larger one, but is not limited by the relationship. The wolf's presence was attentive in a way that was different from its usual steady observation, sharper, aimed. You will not be able to read the small one the way you read the chain users. Their movement is not governed by weight and commitment in the normal way. What is it governed by? A long pause. By something very similar to what governs you, the wolf said. Which means you may be able to read it a different way. It settled. Think about that. Naruto sat with the forest around him, the dark between the trees, the sound of water somewhere north, and thought about it. They reached the coast the following evening and crossed to Wave Country on Tazuna's boat in the gray, still water of an inlet that smelled like salt and low tide and old rope. The ferryman was a young man, 17, 18, who moved the boat with an efficiency that came from years of practice and whose eyes when he looked at Tazuna held a complicated combination of things, fear, loyalty, and the specific exhaustion of someone who'd been sustaining both of those for too long. Wave Country, seen from the water, had a specific quality of held breath. The buildings were intact but there was something withdrawn about them, windows shuttered in the middle of the day, foot traffic on the visible paths thin and purposeful rather than casual. The kind of place that had learned to be small. Naruto looked at it from the bow of the boat and felt both presences in his chest orient toward it, Kurama's fire going lower and more concentrated, Fenrir's silver attention sharpening. This is what it looks like when something is afraid for long enough, Kurama said. And the way the fox said it, without contempt, with something that was almost recognition, told Naruto something new about the Kyuubi that he filed away carefully. Tazuna's daughter was at the dock. She had her son with her, a small boy, 7 or 8, who looked at Team 7 with the wide-eyed assessment of a child who had learned to evaluate strangers very quickly and very accurately. His eyes moved over Naruto and did the same thing adults' eyes did now, the small pause, the recalibration, and then he nodded once, very slightly, as though he'd reached a conclusion about something. Naruto liked him immediately. The house was warm and cramped and had the quality of a place that was being maintained carefully against entropy rather than naturally thriving. Dinner was careful portions. The grandmother, Tazuna's wife, moved through the small kitchen with the competence of someone who had made small amounts of food sufficient for a long time and had stopped being sad about it and started being skilled. Sasuke, sitting across from Naruto, was doing the same calculation Naruto was doing, reading the household, updating his model. Sakura caught Naruto's eye across the table and tilted her head slightly toward the boy, who was eating with the focus of someone doing an important task. Naruto nodded. She'd seen the same thing. That night, in the room they'd been given, Kakashi had them set watches. Naruto was last, in the hours before dawn, and he was sitting at the window looking at the dark outline of the unfinished bridge visible across the inlet, the incomplete span disappearing into darkness, an architectural expression of the entire situation, when the mist came in. It was fast. Faster than natural mist, with a quality of intentionality to it, thickening from the ground up in a way that was technique rather than weather. Naruto was on his feet before it reached the house, hand on the window frame, the wolf already fully alert in his awareness. He went outside. Naruto. Kakashi's voice from the darkness, the Jonin was already there, had been there, mask pulled up and the left eye already covered with the Hitayate held in position. Get back inside. 2 targets, Naruto said. The one with the sword is right of center, approximately 40 meters. The small one, he stopped. He'd been trying to locate the smaller signature the way the wolf had described, not by weight and commitment but by the quality of intention in the movement. And he'd found it, in the way Fenrir had indicated, something cold and precise that moved like water not because it was using water techniques but because it had made itself into something fluid, and the quality of that intention was, sad. Lonely in a specific way, the way something is lonely when it has been defined entirely by its function and has never been allowed to ask whether it wants to be that function. The smaller one is in the mist directly, Naruto said. And they don't want to be here. Kakashi looked at him. Naruto, Zabuza came out of the mist like the mist had decided to become a person. He was enormous, not in the way that was impressive in a description, but in the way that was immediately relevant because it changed the geometry of everything around him. The sword across his back was wrapped and clearly heavy and the wrapping didn't hide what it was. His chakra presence hit the air like a weather system, dense and cold and old, the chakra of someone who had been killing professionally for a long time and had made their peace with that. His eyes went straight to Kakashi, which was expected, and then they moved to Naruto with the flat professional assessment of someone cataloging assets, and they stayed on Naruto for 1 second too long. Sharingan, Zabuza said. An acknowledgement. He was already moving through the seals for the water technique, and it came fast, a massive water dragon technique that tore through the mist in a shape Naruto had never seen executed at full scale, the water mass and the speed of it hitting the space where Kakashi had been standing. Kakashi was gone. The copy ninja came up from below the wave's path, Hitayate off, the Sharingan blazing red, and the mirror of Zabuza's own technique, faster for being copied, water dragon against water dragon, met the original in a collision that shook the air and sent water across the grass in a flat sheet. Naruto felt the small presence move. It came from the mist to his left, fast, and was on him before he'd finished the turn, not attacking yet, just close, closer than anyone had gotten to him in actual combat, and he saw the mask and the ice mirror quality of the chakra now that it was right in front of him, and underneath the mask a pair of eyes that confirmed what the wolf had told him. Sad. Precise. Definite in its function. You move differently than the others, Haku said. Soft voice, almost gentle. The tone of someone conducting an observation rather than an engagement. You feel what I'm carrying, Naruto said. It wasn't a question. A pause in the mist. The sword users were at it in the background, the crack and impact of a fight between people who were roughly matched and knew it, which had a different quality than any other kind of combat. Focused, almost quiet for how much force was involved. Something in you, Haku said. 2 things. A pause. They're not like each other. No. What are they? The fox you've probably heard of, Naruto said. The other one is older. What are you? He meant it as a real question, not a taunt. Kekkei Genkai? Ice release. A beat. You're not afraid. Should I be? Most people, Haku stopped. Most people react to the mask and the mission brief, Naruto said. I'm reacting to you. Those are different things. He looked at Haku steadily, the wolf's reading of the person behind the technique laying itself over his normal perception, the specific loneliness of someone who had decided their emotional life was a liability and had constructed a professional identity to sit in front of it. You're not here because you want to be. I'm here because Zabuza-sama needs me to be. I know. That's what I said. The mist was thick enough that the sword fight was sound and impression rather than visible action, but through it Naruto could feel Kakashi's chakra working fast and precisely, and the Sharingan's quality of copying and responding had put Zabuza on the back foot, not losing, but defending more than attacking. Haku moved. The ice mirrors came up so fast that the environment changed before Naruto consciously registered the hand seals, a dome of reflecting panels surrounding him in a circle, each one a surface that the small person seemed to step into and through with a fluidity that was genuinely unlike anything Naruto had seen or read about. The speed of the movement between mirrors was significant enough that tracking it with normal visual perception was the wrong approach. But the wolf had told him this was possible. Had told him the smaller target would require a different kind of reading. He closed his eyes. Not in defeat. In method. The wolf's tracking of intention rather than position, the read of where a thing would be based on the specific quality of what was driving it, he let that come forward fully, the silver current underneath normal perception, and tracked Haku through the mirrors the way you track a sound rather than a sight, through the quality of the presence rather than its location. The first strike came from Mirror 7. He moved before it arrived. Not perfectly, not the clean redirect he'd managed with the chain users, but enough. The senbon grazed his shoulder rather than finding a pressure point, and the slight stumble he allowed himself was not entirely performance, but the landing was stable and his position when he came up had him facing Mirror 4 instead of the one Haku had entered. A pause in the mirror dome. The attack stopped. You tracked that, Haku said, from inside the mirrors, the voice coming from several directions at once. There was something in it that wasn't quite professional anymore. Something that had briefly surfaced from under the constructed identity. With your eyes closed. I'm not tracking your position, Naruto said. I'm tracking your intention. He looked at the reflections of himself in the ice panels, a dozen versions of him, small and blonde and apparently unconcerned, and thought about what the wolf had said about people who were defined entirely by their function. You have a gentle face, he said. Under the mask. Another pause. Longer. You can't know that, Haku said. The way you move says it. The way you're not pushing the speed you could be using says it. He turned to face the center of the dome rather than any individual mirror. You could have hit me with 8 senbon in the time we've been talking. You're choosing not to. Because you're interesting, Haku said. Not because I'm gentle. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. The presence in the mirrors went very still. And through the stillness Naruto could feel something happening, the specific quality of a person who has been running a long time encountering a question they hadn't prepared a defensive formation for. The constructed professional identity, encountering something it didn't have a response to. Why are you saying this? Haku asked. Quieter. Because somebody should, Naruto said. And because the fight out there is going to end one way or another in the next few minutes, and whatever happens after that, I want you to have heard it. He looked at the ice, the cold perfect surfaces, the reflections. You have a choice about what your life is. Not right now, in this mission, in this moment. But eventually. People who find you interesting are worth more than missions that use you up. Silence in the dome. In the outside fight, something changed. He could feel the quality of the chakra exchange shift, a sudden spike in Zabuza's output and then a different kind of impact. A trap, from the sound of it. Kakashi had set something up. Haku's presence in the mirrors lurched toward it. Fast, too fast for considered movement, the mirror transport toward the sound of Zabuza's changed situation. Naruto let him go. He brought down the ice dome as he moved, the panels dissolving back into mist, and emerged into the clearing where the fight had been to find Kakashi standing and Zabuza pinned with the water prison technique, suspended and immobilized, and Haku at the edge of the clearing not in the fight but present, watching. Two Hunternin came out of the mist from the north. They were fast and identical in movement and they went straight for Zabuza, which was wrong. Hunternin went for the body after neutralization, not for the living target. The discrepancy was there in the opening second of their movement and then it was gone again, covered by professional efficiency. Naruto was already moving. Kakashi-sensei, he said. Those aren't Hunternin. Kakashi's single visible eye was already narrowing. I know. The two figures reached Zabuza's position and the sequence that followed happened in about 4 seconds, a technique Naruto had never seen used, a specific entry point that dissolved the water prison from outside rather than from within, Zabuza's exit from the prison and the simultaneous collapse of the two false Hunternin identities, and then Zabuza and Haku 5 meters into the mist. Zabuza with needles in his neck from wherever they'd come from, Haku at his side. The mist swallowed them. Kakashi made a sound. Not quite frustration. The sound of someone who had almost had a resolution and watched it dissolve. They stood in the clearing. The mist was thinning as the technique that had generated it faded without its user's maintenance. In the gray half-light, the unfinished bridge was visible across the water, its incomplete span extending into nothing. Are you hurt? Kakashi asked. Looking at Naruto's shoulder. Grazed. It's already closing. The Jonin looked at the healing edge of the Senbon cut for a moment. Then at Naruto's face. You were in the mirrored dome for 4 minutes. You're not moving like someone who was nearly killed for 4 minutes. I wasn't nearly killed. Haku's mirror technique has a recorded kill rate of, I tracked him, Naruto said. We talked. He looked at Kakashi steadily. He's not our enemy. He just tried to kill you. He tried to complete a mission. Those are different things too. He turned back toward the house, where Sasuke and Sakura had presumably been doing their own assessment of what they could see from the windows. Zabuza is going to come back. Probably with Haku. Probably better prepared. He paused. Let's not waste the time we have. Kakashi stood in the thinning mist and watched him walk back toward the house with the expression that Naruto had started to recognize as the Jonin's version of recalibrating, the same thing Sasuke had done, the same thing Sakura had done, the same thing Tazuna had done on the dock. Inside, Sasuke was at the window. His expression was the architecture of someone who had watched the outside fight from a vantage point and processed a significant amount of new information about the capability gap between himself and a Jonin-level opponent. The sword user, Sasuke said as Naruto came in. Zabuza. Yeah. He's coming back. Yeah. We need to be better before then. Yeah. Naruto went to his pack, got the medical supply, and started doing something about the shoulder. Kakashi-sensei is going to need help next time. Real help, not distraction and hope. He looked at Sasuke. So we get better. Tonight if possible, tomorrow for certain. Sasuke looked at him for a moment. Then, show me that throw. The read is more important than the throw. Show me both. They went outside in the dark and worked until the night was almost gone, and Sakura joined them after an hour and worked too, and the incomplete bridge stood across the water in the darkness and the village held its collective breath, and Naruto threw shadow clones through movement reads against Sasuke's increasingly sharp counters until both of them were breathing hard and something in the space between them had become something different than competition. Something closer to recognition. Inside, Fenrir watched the training with the quality of ancient patience that was also, Naruto had come to understand, a form of satisfaction, the wolf's equivalent of something going the way it should. You let Haku go, the wolf said. In the dome. He needed to go to Zabuza. Yes. But you also chose not to end it when you could have. Naruto caught a shadow clone's arm and redirected it through the movement read into a hold that the clone couldn't break, and held the position for 2 seconds to check the geometry, then released. "He's not our enemy," he said. "I said it to Kakashi and I meant it." "You are correct," the wolf said. "But the situation will not care about that." "I know. The situation will require you to make a decision that you won't want to make." Naruto stood in the dark with the bridge behind him and the village around him and the weight of 2 ancient presences inside him, and he thought about Haku's sad eyes and the specific quality of someone who had never been asked whether they wanted to be what they were. "I know," he said again. He picked up the training and kept going, because knowledge without preparation was just anticipatory grief, and he had a lot of work left to do before Zabuza came back. The work didn't stop. Chapter 5, Hunger and the Exam. The Chunin exams arrived in the way that significant things often arrived, announced formally, contextualized officially, and carrying underneath the official framing a different kind of weight entirely that had nothing to do with the stated purpose. Kakashi nominated Team 7 3 months after Wave Country. The nomination itself wasn't surprising to Naruto. He'd known it was coming the way you knew weather was coming, from the quality of the training in the weeks before, the specific things Kakashi had started pushing and the equally specific things he'd stopped correcting as though they were adequate now. What was mildly surprising was that Kakashi nominated all 3 of them simultaneously, which was not as common as the official curriculum implied. Jonin instructors often held team members back when they weren't ready, creating the awkward social mathematics of a partially promoted team. Kakashi looked at all 3 of them in the training ground on a Wednesday morning and said, "You're going in together," and put the book away before any of them could respond, which was his version of emphasis. They registered the following morning. The registration office was staffed by a Chunin who processed their paperwork with the administrative efficiency of someone who had done this exact task many times and found it neither interesting nor unpleasant, just a function. He stamped the forms, handed back the copies, and told them the first stage would begin in 1 week at the Academy building, room 301. Naruto took his copy, folded it, and felt the wolf's attention sharpened by a degree. "Something is already in motion," Fenrir said. "Not urgency. Just noting." "The exams themselves or something around them?" Naruto asked. "Internal, walking away from the registration desk. Around them. Using them." A pause. "The shape of wanting I told you about. It has been patient." Another pause, longer. "It is done being patient." The first exam was a written test, which should have been straightforward and was instead a masterwork of psychological design that Naruto recognized and appreciated in the same way he appreciated a well-constructed trap, the admiration of something well made even when it was made to catch you. Room 301 was packed. Teams from sand, rain, grass, sound, waterfall, a constellation of foreign headbands that Naruto moved through on the way to a seat, reading the room the way he'd been reading rooms for a year, cataloging the specific threat geometries of the people in it. Most of the candidates were older. Several were significantly older, which was either unremarkable for their village's promotion cycle or was itself a piece of information. He sat. Looked at the test when it was distributed. Read all 10 questions. Could not answer 9 of them with any confidence. That was fine. That was the design. The 10th question, not distributed until the final 30 seconds, was the real exam, and the real exam was not a question at all but a choice, accept the unknown, uncertain final question and risk failing, or leave now with no mark on your record. "You already know this," Fenrir said. "I know." He looked around the room at the candidates making their calculations, some of them already pushing back from desks, some sitting with the visible tension of people running probability. Across the room, Sakura was still, she'd figured it out. Sasuke was still. A few people were standing to leave. He thought about the Hokage. About the note the range shinobi had been carrying. How long until you're ready? And the patience of whatever had been watching, now done being patient. Orochimaru would not announce himself at a written test. But something around the exam, something that had been arranged around it, seems carefully aligned with the existing structure, easy to miss as part of the official framework, might be precisely the kind of approach a man who studied rather than attacked would use. Naruto raised his hand. The proctor, Ibiki Marino, whose face told a story about his career that was more informative than his file, looked at him. "I'll take the 10th question," Naruto said. He looked the proctor in the eye and held his hand steady, and when the final question was delivered and the design of it became clear, what it was actually asking, the layered courage versus calculation framework underneath it, he answered it in his own terms, which were not the terms the question expected but were the most honest answer to what the question was actually about. Ibiki looked at his answer for a moment, then looked at him with the expression of someone who was used to being able to read people and was reading something that was giving him the specific enjoyment of an unusual data point. They moved to the second stage. The Forest of Death. 44 teams. 1 scroll each, Earth or Heaven. 5 days to get both and reach the central tower. The official framing was survival and collection, straightforward, brutal, clear. The forest was one of Konoha's genuine dangers, a 64 square kilometer enclosed training ground that contained things that would have been A-rank threat encounters in any other context and was treated here as an exam environment. Naruto stood at the gate with the forest behind the chain-link fence and both presences inside him oriented toward it simultaneously, the fox's fire sharpening to something predatory and the wolf's silver attention spreading outward through the trees in the way it always did when it was mapping a new territory. "Dense," Kurama said. "Strong chakra signatures. Several that are not animals." "I count 4 separate infiltration signatures," Fenrir said. 3 are candidates using transformation techniques badly. 1 is something else. Something else meaning older than this exam. Patient in a way that has nothing to do with being a candidate. A pause, the quality of something identifying a scent. There. North-northeast. 300 meters into the trees from their entry gate, which would put it roughly in the path of the most direct route to the tower. "Don't go north-northeast initially," Naruto said. Out loud, as Sasuke and Sakura turned toward him. "The tower is north," Sasuke said. "I know. Don't go there first." He looked at both of them. "We have a heaven scroll. There are 4 earth scrolls within a 200-meter arc south and east of our entry point. I can feel 3 of them and I'm confident about the 4th based on the entry gate positioning. We take 2 of the 3, leave the 3rd, and we have our set without going north for at least 2 days." Sakura processed this. "You can feel the scrolls. I can feel the chakra of the people carrying them." He looked at the forest. "There's also something north of the direct tower path that isn't a candidate team. Something that's been in there before the exam started." He kept his voice level. "We avoid it for now." Sasuke's eyes went to the north. The dark trees, the visible depth of the forest. "You think it's a threat?" "I think it's waiting," Naruto said. "Which is different. And I'd like to understand it better before we walk into it." A beat of silence. The gate opened. Teams began moving. "South first," Sakura said. She was already reading the entry vectors of the other teams, the crowd geometry of 44 groups dispersing from a single point. "If we move south-southeast for the first hour we avoid the initial conflict clustering and pick up the eastern approach to the first scroll carrier." "Good," Naruto said. They moved. The first scroll team they encountered was from Rain, 3 candidates, solid coordination, the lead shinobi with a water technique capability that was legitimate and well-trained. They were capable enough to be genuinely dangerous to a less prepared team and not quite capable enough to manage what Naruto and Sasuke brought simultaneously from opposite angles while Sakura created a distraction pattern from above that had graduated from the theoretical framework she'd had at the Bell test into something that was now actually dangerous. It lasted under a minute. The Rain team was not seriously hurt. Naruto had been very clear on that as a condition, not out of sentiment exactly, but because there was no reason to injure people who were doing their jobs correctly and whose mistake was only in underestimating what they'd been matched with. You learned more from being outclassed than from being hurt, and Naruto had no interest in teaching lessons the hard way when the easy way worked. The second scroll came from a grass team that tried to use a fog technique as cover and found that Naruto moved through the fog with the same comfort he moved through any environment, possibly more. The wolf's tracking methods were not impaired by reduced visibility. That one lasted 40 seconds. They had both scrolls by midday. "We're done," Sakura said, sitting in the fork of a large tree at the edge of a clearing, scroll in her pack, looking at the quality of the afternoon light through the canopy. "We could go to the tower now." "We could," Naruto said. "But you don't want to." "I want to know what's north-northeast," he said. "It's been there for hours. It hasn't moved." He looked through the trees in that direction, not seeing anything, not needing to see anything. The presence was there the same way the fox's fire was there, felt rather than observed. "If it's here for the exam in some unofficial capacity, we're going to encounter it eventually. I'd rather approach it on our terms than on its timeline." Sasuke, sitting on a branch above, looked down. "You think it's related to Mizuki?" "Mizuki's contact," Naruto said. "Someone who studies." "Orochimaru," Sakura said. Quietly, like saying it out loud was committing to something. "Maybe." He looked north. "Probably." He looked at both of them. "I'm not asking you to come. Get to the tower, register the scrolls. I'll meet you there before nightfall." "That's a terrible plan," Sakura said. "I know. We're not going to the tower while you go north alone," Sasuke said, from above, in the flat tone he used when a decision had been made and he was informing you of it rather than discussing it. Naruto looked up at him. Sasuke looked down. The specific quality of that exchange had developed over the months since the Bell test, since Wave Country, since the late training sessions in the dark with the bridge in the background. There was a word for what it had become, but Naruto hadn't said it out loud yet because some things were better established in action than named. "Fine," he said. "North-northeast. Stay close and don't commit to anything until I say." They moved through the afternoon forest in a formation that had become instinctual over months of training. Naruto point, Sasuke left flank at 8 meters, Sakura right flank at 6 with more elevation, the shape of it something Kakashi had sketched for them once on a training ground diagram and then left them to develop organically into something that fit their specific capabilities. The presence clarified as they approached. Not like a signature clarifying as you closed distance. Like something that had been slightly obscured deciding to become visible. The distinction mattered because obscured signatures were normal, distance and foliage and chakra suppression all reduced clarity. A signature that had been choosing to present as slightly unclear and was now choosing differently was something else. "It knows we're coming," Naruto said. "It has known since we turned north," Fenrir said. "It is making a decision about presentation." They came into a small clearing in the eastern section of the forest, still deep enough in that the sound of other candidate teams was distant, and found a shinobi sitting on a fallen log in the clearing center. Naruto's first impression was of compression, something very large pressed into a human shape through an effort of sustained will, like trying to hold back a river with your hands. The chakra was enormous, genuinely enormous, not the sharp-hot enormousness of combat-ready output but the settled enormous of something that existed at a different baseline scale than normal. And it was wrong. Not in the sense of evil, wrong in the sense of misaligned, like a note played perfectly that nonetheless didn't belong in the scale the song was using. The man looked at them with golden eyes. Not Sharingan adjacent, not a technique. Just golden, still, with the specific quality of something that had been looking at things for a very long time and had developed patience as its primary mode of engagement. "Team 7, Orochimaru said pleasantly. "Right on time." His voice was the most immediately unsettling thing about him, not the eyes, not the chakra signature, not the specific wrongness of the way he was sitting. The voice, because it had the quality of someone who was only performing pleasantness and was doing so consciously, with the expectation that you knew it was a performance and didn't care. It was the voice of a man who had been the most intelligent person in every room he'd ever been in and had stopped pretending to disguise it. Naruto stopped at the clearing's edge. Sasuke and Sakura halted at their flanking positions. I wondered if you'd come to me or wait for me to come to you, Orochimaru said. He was looking at Naruto with the studying attention that the wolf had described, the particular shape of wanting that came from a person who had decided they were owed everything. Except it was more specific than that, here, in person. It was the attention of someone running a live observation on a subject they'd been thinking about for years, comparing the reality to the model and noting the discrepancies with the particular pleasure of a scientist whose hypothesis has produced interesting variants. You came to me. That's more interesting. You sent Mizuki, Naruto said. I did. Not denying it, not performing regret. Just confirming, with the easy comfort of someone who had done many things and found the accounting of them neutral. You handled that well. Much better than I expected from a 7-year-old. Though you weren't entirely 7 at that point, were you? Not in the ways that mattered. What do you want? Naruto asked. To talk, Orochimaru said. To understand. His golden eyes moved over Naruto with a precision that was genuinely unsettling, not aggressive, clinical, the way a very skilled doctor's examination was unsettling because of the efficiency of its inference. 2 seals. Neither of them yours by choice, both of them fully integrated at a rate that should not be possible at your age. Your father was brilliant, but the integration timeline he projected in his notes assumed a much more gradual awakening. He paused. What accelerated it? That's not something I'm going to tell you, Naruto said. The alley, Orochimaru said pleasantly, and Naruto felt something tighten in his chest. 3 men. A 7-year-old. The psychological trigger for the dual awakening. He watched Naruto's face with the golden eyes. I've been thorough. You've been invasive, Naruto said. There's a difference. Something flickered in Orochimaru's expression, not offense, the concept of being offended by a child was clearly not in his operational vocabulary. Closer to adjustment, the recalibration of someone who had expected a different conversational register. You're not afraid, he said. Half observation, half something that was almost admiration in the specific way that a collector admires a rare specimen. No. Most people, I know what most people do, Naruto said. I'm not most people. You've been studying me long enough to know that. He looked at Orochimaru with the full wolf-read deployed, and what it told him was layered and complicated and would take time to fully process, but the surface read was immediate. This was a man who had chosen power as his fundamental project and had been executing that project with total consistency for so many years that it had become indistinguishable from his identity. Not mad. Not simple. The specific kind of brilliant that had metabolized its own ethics. What do you want from me? Naruto asked again. Specifically. To understand the wolf spirit's integration mechanism, Orochimaru said. The Kyuubi is documented. Its chakra interactions, its sealing requirements, its long-term effects on a host, all of this is knowable from existing records. But Fenrir no Shiroi, he said the name with the reverence of someone who had spent a long time in research, has not had a recorded host in over 1,000 years. The integration data doesn't exist. The physiological changes, the chakra pathways, the way the two spirits interact with each other and with a single human nervous system, his golden eyes were fully present now, the performance of pleasantness entirely dropped in the specific way that academics lost their social masks when discussing their actual subject. That data would be worth more than any jutsu I could develop from the scroll of seals. Worth more than almost anything. And what happens to me in the process of you getting it? Naruto asked. A pause. Genuinely considered. That depends on how cooperative you are, Orochimaru said. I am not interested in destroying what I'm studying. Dead specimens are limited data. But you're comfortable with the destruction being a possibility. I'm comfortable with a great many things that other people find uncomfortable, he said. That's what 30 years of dedicated research produces. The forest was quiet around them. Naruto could hear Sasuke's breathing at his 8, Sakura's steadier rhythm at his 6, she was doing the thing she did when she was running a threat assessment, the specific stillness that preceded a decision. He could feel both presences inside him fully oriented toward the man on the log, and the quality of their attention was the same in a way that was rare. Foxfire and Wolf Silver both pointed at the same thing with the same quality of focus. "Here's what I want you to understand," Naruto said. Orochimaru waited. The golden eyes were patient. "I'm not data," Naruto said. "I'm not a subject. I'm not a specimen or a research opportunity." He walked forward, into the clearing, 3 steps, and stopped. "I know what you've built. I know how you think. I know the shape of what you want, and I know you've been watching me and building a model of what I am." He looked at Orochimaru directly. "Your model is wrong. It's already wrong, and it's getting more wrong the longer you wait to revise it." The golden eyes were very still. "I'm not going to run from you," Naruto continued. "I'm not going to hide from you. I'm not going to be difficult to find or hard to predict at the broad level. I'm going to be a genin in Konoha doing exactly what genin in Konoha do, and eventually we're going to be in the same place in a context where you try to take what you want from me." He kept his voice completely level. "I'm telling you this now, directly, so that when that happens you can't say you weren't informed. Whatever you build toward that moment, whatever technique or trap or approach you develop based on your current model of me, it's going to be based on data that is months out of date. Because I don't stop." He let that sit for a moment. "I'm better than I was yesterday," he said. "I'll be better tomorrow than I am today. You've been studying something that keeps changing faster than your data can keep up with." He looked at the golden eyes. "You should factor that in." Orochimaru looked at him for a long moment. Then he did something Naruto hadn't expected. He smiled. Not the performed pleasantness from before, something genuine, involuntary, the expression of a person who had received something they hadn't anticipated and found the receipt genuinely pleasurable. "Minato's son," he said, almost to himself. "Yes." He stood from the log, unfolding to his full height, the enormous compressed chakra shifting slightly as he moved. "I came here to attach a cursed seal to the Uchiha," he said conversationally. "The Sharingan's copying mechanism under cursed seal enhancement is a fascinating data set. That was my primary objective for this exam." Sasuke, behind Naruto, went very still. "I find myself more interested in a secondary objective," Orochimaru said. His golden eyes were fully on Naruto now, with the expression of someone revising a research direction in real time. "Studying something static is productive. Studying something that argues back is," he tilted his head slightly. "More so. You're not attaching anything to anyone on my team," Naruto said. The wolf's presence was fully forward now, not as a display, not deliberately, but the silver quality of Fenrir's attention had moved to the surface in the way it did when the wolf made a decision, and whatever it did to Naruto's expression or presence in those moments was something other people felt without being able to name. Orochimaru felt it. His golden eyes shifted very slightly. The first actual reaction that wasn't intellectual, the first thing that moved in response to something other than information. "Two spirits," he said. Quietly. "Together. In a child who tells me my data is outdated and means it." He was quiet for a moment. "You'll be at the preliminary matches. And the finals, if you make them." He stepped backward, 1 step, the movement controlled and deliberate. "I look forward to watching you work." "I know," Naruto said. Orochimaru laughed, a real one, short, genuine, and walked into the trees and was gone, the compressed chakra receding with him until the clearing felt suddenly larger than it had, the absence of that weight like the easing of something you hadn't realized you'd been bracing against. Silence. "He was going to," Sakura started. "Seal you," Naruto said to Sasuke, turning. "Some kind of mark. Cursed seal enhancement to the Sharingan." Sasuke's expression was doing something that wasn't anger exactly. It was more like the specific kind of controlled response that came from a person who had just been told someone walked into their house. "He said it to your face," Sasuke said. "That he intended to do it. Because he was already pivoting away from it," Naruto said. He told us because it cost him nothing to tell us, he'd already decided not to. Not today. He looked in the direction Orochimaru had gone, the dark between the trees that had closed back over the man's departure like water over a stone. He'll come back. But not for you specifically, next time. He paused. For me. A long silence in the clearing. We should get to the tower, Sakura said. Yeah, Naruto said. They went south and then east and reached the central tower before nightfall, scrolls intact, and when they opened the case in the tower's lower chamber the message revealed by the paired scrolls said knowing yourselves, which was the exam's official lesson, the kind of lesson that could be read multiple ways depending on how much had happened to you in the previous 5 days. Naruto looked at the message for a moment. Did you know? He asked Fenrir. Walking through the tower's interior, following the corridor toward the registration point. That he would be in the forest. A pause. I knew something was positioned. I did not know it was him specifically. Did you know about the cursed seal plan? For Sasuke. A longer pause. I knew something was being planned for someone on your team. The specific target I did not know. Would you have told me if you had? Yes, the wolf said. Immediately, without the consideration that preceded uncertain answers. Immediately. Okay. He kept walking. And the conversation. What did you make of it? He is exactly what I described, Fenrir said. The shape of wanting. Enormous intelligence fully committed to self-serving ends. The kind of person who mistakes the depth of their desire for a justification for its satisfaction. A pause. He found you interesting. That is both useful and dangerous. Because interesting means he'll study before he acts. Which gives you time, the wolf said. And because he will underestimate what that time means for you specifically, given that what you just told him about your rate of improvement is true. A beat. You told him the truth to use it as a weapon. I told him the truth because it was true, Naruto said. The weapon part was a side benefit. Fenrir made a sound that was the closest thing to approval the wolf had ever expressed directly. The preliminary matches began the same evening, in the tower's arena floor, against the full roster of teams who had made it through. The matches were one-on-one elimination rounds, drawn randomly, and the format was exactly the kind of structure that was designed to reveal what 5 days in the forest had produced in each candidate. Naruto drew first. His opponent was a sound ninja, one of the new village's candidates, young, with a technique that used sound wave disruption to interfere with chakra control and equilibrium. It was genuinely clever. Against a normally skilled opponent it would have been devastating, the wave disruption creating a physical nausea that preceded the technical breakdown of chakra pathways. The sound ninja activated it in the first 3 seconds of the match. Naruto felt it. The specific frequency hit the inner ear first and then moved outward through the body in the way the technique was designed. He felt the wolf's silver current respond to it, not defensively, more like a medium finding its level, the fox's chakra underneath responding to the wave disruption the way a very large fire responded to someone trying to blow it out with a handheld fan. He walked forward. The sound ninja increased the frequency. The proctor watched with the expression of someone who was reconsidering their assessment of how this match was going to go. In the stands, Naruto could see the other candidates watching, the Suna team with the complicated energy of people whose village had an arrangement with Orochimaru's sound, and in the front of the Suna section, a red-haired boy with dark circles under his eyes and the specific stillness of someone who hadn't moved in a long time and had learned to be comfortable in that stillness in a way that wasn't comfort at all. Gaara of the Desert. Sand siblings. He'd read the file. The one-tailed beast. The host whose sealing had gone wrong in specific technical ways that had resulted in something different from Naruto's situation, darker, more isolated, the beast unable to integrate, the host unable to sleep, the sand moving on automatic protective protocols regardless of context. Gaara had spent his life as a weapon that couldn't be sheathed. He looked at Naruto now across the arena with the full attention of someone who had recognized something from a distance and was waiting to confirm the recognition up close. Naruto met the look for 1 second, acknowledged it, and returned his attention to his match. The sound ninja was good. The technique was good. Naruto walked through it and the technique escalated and he kept walking and the specific quality of the wolf's presence at full surface, not the fox's fire, not the rage and the enormousness, the silver clarity that existed above panic and outside the frequency range the sound technique was designed to disrupt, meant that what should have been disorienting was simply information. He closed the distance in 4 steps. 3 shadow clones coming from different angles. The sound ninja went defensive, which was the right choice, and the defensive technique was solid, and Naruto wasn't trying to break through the defense, he was trying to understand it, reading it lived the way he read everything, and the reading told him the defensive formation had a natural exit on the left side during the transition between defensive seals 3 and 4. He was in that exit before it fully opened. The match ended in 7 seconds of contact. Not brutally, Naruto wasn't interested in brutality for its own sake and never had been, but completely, the kind of ending that didn't require a second look from the proctor. The arena was quiet for a moment. Then Gaara of the desert made a sound. Not loud, a very quiet exhale, the sound of someone who had been holding a breath for an unspecified amount of time and had received the answer to the question that had been making them hold it. Naruto looked at him from the arena floor. What he saw was something he recognized with the bone-deep recognition of his own history, not the same history, differently shaped, differently weighted, but the same essential architecture, a person who carried something vast and uncontrollable and had been defined by the carrying of it rather than by themselves, who had been isolated by that definition until the isolation had metabolized into something that looked from the outside like violence and was from the inside something closer to the logical endpoint of absolute loneliness. "You have won too," Gaara said. Across the arena, quietly, in a voice that had the specific flatness of someone who had stopped using their voice for anything except functional communication a long time ago. "More than one," Naruto said. Gaara's teal eyes processed this. The sand around him, it was always there, the autonomous sand, the always-on defensive system of a person who'd never been allowed to stop defending, moved slightly, a slow unconscious shift. "I exist to kill," Gaara said. "That is my purpose. That is what I was made for." "That's what someone told you," Naruto said. "Someone wrong." Gaara looked at him for a long time. The proctor called the arena clear. The next match was announced. Naruto walked to the side of the arena and sat on the bench and felt Fenrir's attention still oriented toward the red-haired boy across the way, with the specific quality of the wolf recognizing something worth watching. "He is very close to the edge," the wolf said. "I know. The wrong encounter at the wrong moment, I know," Naruto said. "Which is why the right encounter at the right moment matters." He watched Gaara from across the arena, the still figure surrounded by its automatic sand, the boy who had been told he existed to kill and had believed it because no one had offered him anything better to believe. He came here because Orochimaru arranged it. "Something is planned for the finals." "Yes," the wolf said. "An invasion. Using the exams as cover." Naruto had suspected it since the forest, the too clean alignment of Orochimaru's presence with the exam structure, the Suna team's energy, the specific way the sound ninja had presented as a candidate rather than a mission asset. It was a large operation, patient in its architecture, the kind of plan that took months and required multiple moving parts and had Orochimaru's fingerprints all over it. "Does Gaara know?" he asked. "The surface part," the wolf said. "They will activate him. He knows he is the weapon. He does not know he has a choice about being one." Naruto looked at the red-haired boy across the arena floor. He thought about the alley. The rain. The door opening at the bottom of the dark lake. What the wolf had said to him in the first moment of the first conversation, "I am very old. And I have survived everything. So have you. The question is whether you plan to keep surviving, or whether you plan to start living." Nobody had said that to Gaara. Nobody had even come close. Sakura appeared beside him on the bench, sitting down with the contained energy of someone who had watched his match and was still processing the speed of it. "He recognized you," she said. Meaning Gaara. We recognized each other, Naruto said. There's a difference. And Orochimaru's plan? She kept her voice low, professional. I need to talk to the Hokage, Naruto said. Tonight, after the prelims. Before anything moves further. He looked at her. How much did you put together in the forest? The sound team's movement pattern didn't match candidates trying to survive the exam, she said. It matched an insertion team moving toward a predetermined objective. And the grass candidate who wasn't a candidate. Which one? She described the candidate she'd seen in the preliminary matches, the wrong chakra signature under the grass headband, that tells of someone whose actual training background was different from the cover identity. Naruto hadn't seen that one. He filed it. Good catch, he said. I'm not done catching things, she said, which was the Sakura version of I told you so about something that hadn't happened yet, which was its own kind of confidence. Naruto's fight with the Hokage that night was not a fight in the conventional sense. Hiruzen listened to everything, the forest, Orochimaru, the conversational exchange, the invasion read, the Gaara assessment, with the pipe going in his hands and the specific weight on his shoulders of a man who had been managing crises for a very long time and had never quite finished managing the previous one before the next arrived. I know about the invasion, Hiruzen said, when Naruto finished. Naruto looked at him. How long? Confirmed intelligence, 4 days. He looked at his desk. The exam structure is being used as cover for a simultaneous assault on the village from inside and outside the walls, timed to the finals. Gaara is the inside weapon, Naruto said. Yes. He doesn't have to be, Naruto said. He's being used. If someone reaches him before the activation signal, Naruto, Hiruzen said. Gently, with the specific gentleness of someone delivering a difficult truth to someone who deserved better than a difficult truth. The political dimension of this is, I'm not talking politics, Naruto said. I'm talking about a person. He met the old man's eyes. I know you have protocols. I know there are large pieces of this that are above my rank and outside my lane. I'm not asking you to let me run the invasion response. A pause. I'm asking you to not write Gaara off as an acceptable casualty because he's inconvenient. Hiruzen looked at him for a long time. The finals are in 1 month, the old man said finally. If something is going to be different, with Gaara, with the invasion timeline, a month is not much time. I know how long a month is, Naruto said. I've done a lot with less. The old man smiled at that, not the political smile, not the Hokage performance. The real one, the one that looked like a person rather than a position. You have, he said. Naruto left the tower, walked through the village in the late evening under the lantern light, and let Fenrir settle into the background steady rhythm that meant the wolf was satisfied with how a decision had been made even if the outcome wasn't certain yet. From his fire presence, Kurama said something that was almost but not quite words. Something that landed in Naruto's chest as a kind of affirmation, the fox's way of weighing in without the pride cost of actually weighing in. I heard that, Naruto said. The fire presence did something that was absolutely not embarrassment. I definitely heard that, Naruto said, and felt the fox's indignation all the way home, and felt perfectly good about it. Chapter 6. What the moon made the month before the finals moved the way months move when the thing at the end of them is large enough to change the shape of everything before it, not slowly, not quickly, but with a specific quality of compression, each day containing more than days normally held, the pressure of the approaching thing making the time denser. Naruto trained. Not the way he trained before the exam, which had been systematic and building. This was different, sharper, more specific, the training of someone who knew the shape of what was coming and was calibrating to meet it. Kakashi ran morning sessions that pushed all 3 of them past what they'd been doing before. Afternoon sessions Naruto ran himself, on the roof or the training ground or occasionally in the forest outside the walls when he needed space that the villages contained geometry couldn't give him. The wolf worked with him differently now too. Fenrir had been patient for 8 months, the long architectural patience of something that was building toward a specific kind of integration, laying groundwork in the right order, refusing to rush what needed time. That patience hadn't gone away. But the quality of the sessions had shifted, the wolf pushing further than it had before, going into territory they hadn't touched yet. The full integration, Naruto said, on the third morning of the month. Sitting on the training ground at 5 a.m. with the dew still on the grass. You've been avoiding it. I've been sequencing toward it, Fenrir said. There is a difference. How much further is the sequence? A pause. You've been integrating Fox chakra naturally for months. The red chakra, you can access it deliberately now without the loss of control problem that affects most Jinchuriki. Because you stabilized it, Naruto said. The wolf's presence acts as a regulator. Yes. The dual nature is the point. Your father understood this even if he didn't fully know why. The fox chakra alone in a young host would have been destabilizing. The wolf's presence creates a counterbalance that allows real access. Another pause. What we haven't done is the reverse. Wolf chakra with fox chakra as the stabilizer. And that's more dangerous. Not dangerous, Fenrir said. Significant. The wolf's full chakra expression is physical in ways the fox's isn't. The fox's power is output, chakra volume, force, the capacity to destroy. The wolf's power is transformation. Not genjutsu, not technique. Actual biological change. The silver eyes in the back of his awareness were fully present, the wolf's attention completely centered. Your body is ready for it now. Barely. A month ago it was not. Naruto sat with this. What does it look like? It looks like what you are, the wolf said. Not a monster. Not a beast. Something that is you and also more than you, faster, stronger, with senses that don't exist in normal human range. A pause. Your eyes change. Your nails change. Your hearing and your sense of smell, both of which have already been developing without the full integration, become something else entirely. And control is the work, Fenrir said. That is what the month is for. They started that morning. It was not as dramatic as Naruto had half expected and significantly more demanding. The wolf chakra came in the way the wolf did everything, not with the overwhelming force of the Kyuubi's red tide, which had to be managed against its own pressure, but with a deep, spreading warmth that moved through his system from the center outward and required something more like yielding than force. Letting it happen. The control was not about containing it but about being present inside it, staying himself while the something more expanded around himself. His nails went first. He looked at his hands and the nails had thickened and darkened at the edges and were longer than they'd been 10 seconds ago, and the sensation was not pain but pressure, the feeling of something that was part of him expressing itself for the first time. Stay present, Fenrir said. I'm present. You're about to not be. Your heart rate just jumped. That's anxiety, not physical response. The anxiety is the thing that breaks control, not the chakra itself. A pause, calm as stone. Breathe. You've been breathing with me for 8 months. Do that. He breathed. The wolf chakra settled. Stayed. He sat with it fully present for 40 seconds before the integration unwound naturally, the extra qualities receding, his nails returning to normal with a sensation like water draining. He did it again. And again. 3 more times before the sun was fully up, each one slightly longer, slightly more stable, the control coming not from gripping but from the quality of presence the wolf had been teaching him since the first morning on the roof after the alley. Over the following 2 weeks, the integration sessions became something he could hold for minutes. The physical changes when the wolf was fully forward were visible and specific, the nails, the eyes going silver gray at the edges of the iris, a marked increase in the acuteness of his hearing and smell that was present even without the full integration now, the baseline shifting upward as the two systems deepened their coexistence. Sasuke noticed the eyes first. They were sparring on the training ground, full contact in the way their sparring had become, and Naruto was running a read and redirect that had Sasuke pressing hard with the fire technique variations he'd been developing. Sasuke landed a hit, a real one, the first clean hit he'd gotten in 6 sessions, and Naruto took it and came out of the roll with the wolf's tracking fully active, the silver at the iris edges visible for 2 seconds before he brought it back. Sasuke stopped moving. "Your eyes," he said. "Yeah. They were silver." "Partially." Naruto stood, rolled the shoulder that had taken the hit, assessed the damage and found it already mending at the accelerated rate that had become normal. "It happens when the wolf is fully active in my senses. I'm working on the control." Sasuke looked at him with the Uchiha expression that was fully calibrated now, not the dismissal, not the competitive assessment he used to default to, but the specific attention of someone who was tracking something real. "Can the Sharingan read it? The wolf chakra?" "I don't know," Naruto said. "Can you tell the difference between the two presences when you look at me?" Sasuke looked. The dark eyes did something, processing through the visual information with the Uchiha's particular aptitude for reading chakra through sight. "The red one is clear," he said. "The other one is," he frowned slightly. "It moves differently. The fox chakra has edges. The wolf chakra doesn't have edges, it has depth." "That's a good way to put it," Naruto said. "Is that useful information?" "Probably, yes." Naruto thought about Orochimaru in the forest clearing, the golden eyes running their live observation, the model he was building. If the Sharingan read the wolf chakra as depthful rather than edged, that was a property that could be used, in how he deployed it, in when he let it be visible, in what it told opponents about what was happening in the transition between the two states. "I'll think about it." Sakura's training in the same period took a direction that was hers entirely. She'd started working with one of the village's medical jonin, a woman named Shizune who was apparently visiting Konoha for reasons connected to the Hokage's extended network, and the work Sakura was doing with Shizune in the afternoons was producing something that Naruto watched with genuine interest. The medical chakra training was unlocking something in how Sakura used her natural precision, directing it toward a system of chakra control that used efficiency as its weapon in the same way Naruto's approach used depth. She was becoming something specific and formidable, and she was doing it quietly, without announcement, which was perhaps the most Sakura possible way to do anything. The invasion plan was not neutralized. Naruto had hoped, had genuinely believed when he sat across from Hiruzen and made his case, that the knowledge of it would allow the village to dismantle it before the finals arrived. The reality was more complicated, the political reality of the Sand Alliance and the existing commitments and the intelligence gaps that meant acting too early would scatter the elements of the plan without catching the center of it. The village's response was preparation rather than preemption. ANBU positioned. Jonin briefed. Emergency protocols embedded in the exams event framework. And Gaara. Naruto had tried twice in the weeks before the finals to create an encounter with Gaara that wasn't adversarial, once in the exam preparation area, once near the training grounds where the sand team was drilling. Both times the red-haired boy had seen him coming and moved away with the automatic withdrawal of something that had learned that approach meant threat. Not afraid. Gaara didn't do afraid anymore, had burned through fear so long ago that what was left on the other side wasn't courage but a specific kind of emptiness that was its own kind of armor. But approach means threat was the operational reality of his existence, and Naruto walking toward him activated it regardless of intention. "I can't make him hear me if he won't stop moving," Naruto said, on the 15th day of the month, to Fenrir. "He will be still in one context," the wolf said. "If you meet him as what you are, rather than as a person approaching him." A pause. "He recognizes something in you at a distance. Up close, the human shape overrides the recognition." Another pause. "Take the human shape out of it." Naruto thought about this. On the 17th day of the month, he went to the training ground at 2 in the morning with no particular plan and sat down in the center of the field and let the wolf come forward completely, further than he'd taken it in the integration sessions, the silver deepening in his eyes and the senses expanding outward through the night in the full acute range that the wolf's chakra opened up. Not a transformation. Not an attack stance. Just sitting in the dark with the full presence of what he was, the dual nature settled and integrated and fully inhabited. He felt Gaara before he heard him. The one-tailed beast's chakra signature was distinctive, compressed and grinding, sand and madness and the specific exhaustion of something that could not stop, the beast unable to quiet and the host unable to separate from it. It moved through the dark from the east, and the footsteps when they came were quiet in the way of someone who had learned to move silently less as a skill than as a survival behavior, not wanting to be heard by people who would respond badly to knowing where you were. Gaara stopped at the edge of the training ground. He looked at Naruto. Naruto looked back at him, silver-edged, the wolf fully forward, the dual presences inside him both present and calm. "You're not sleeping again," Naruto said. "I never sleep," Gaara said. It wasn't complaint. Just fact. "I know." He kept his voice level, the way Fenrir was always level, the quality of something that didn't need to raise itself to be heard. "Come sit down." A long pause at the edge of the ground. The sand around Gaara moved in the slow automatic way it moved when he was still, the protective system doing its low-power idle, always on, never fully at rest. "Why?" Gaara said. Not a question. The flatness of a person who had learned that offers came with conditions and was checking for the conditions before considering the offer. "Because it's 2 in the morning and neither of us is sleeping and the village is doing its quiet thing and there's room," Naruto said. "That's the whole reason." Another pause. Longer. Gaara walked across the training ground and sat down. Not close, 10 feet, the specific distance of someone maintaining the minimum safe operational separation they'd calculated was polite for an unfamiliar context. The sand moved with him and settled in a low ambient cloud. They sat in the dark for a while without talking. "There are 2 of them in you," Gaara said finally. "Yeah. The fox I know about." He looked at Naruto with the teal eyes that were the same color all the time, day or night, the eyes of someone whose alertness never cycled down to the baseline where color changed in low light. "The other one is different from anything I've felt." "He's very old," Naruto said. "Older than the tailed beasts, probably. He's not like them, not a seal demon, not chakra beast in the same way. He's more like..." He thought about how to say it. "A principle. Like the concept of the hunt given form. Something that existed before the framework we use to talk about these things existed." Gaara processed this. "And he is settled in you. Not fighting. Not anymore." "How?" Gaara said. The word was so stripped of everything except the actual question that it was almost painful. Naruto looked at him. The wolf's red of Gaara was something he'd been sitting with for weeks, the full architecture of it, the long damage and the specific way the one-tailed beast's incomplete integration had shaped the damage, the person Gaara might have been versus the person the conditions of his existence had produced. He didn't say any of that. It wasn't what the question was asking. "I think it started because I refused to treat them like threats," Naruto said. "The fox especially, Kurama had every reason to be hostile. He was sealed against his will by my father, who died doing it, into a newborn who then got hated for it. His rage made total sense. I didn't try to fight it or suppress it. I just..." He paused. "I acknowledged that it made sense. And I kept showing up. Every morning. 4 months. Without asking him to be different." Gaara's expression didn't change. But something in the quality of his stillness changed, a shift in what was behind it. It responded to that. "Eventually," Naruto said. "In its own way. Not warmth, Kurama's not warm. But something. Respect, maybe, except he'd never call it that." He looked at the dark sky. "Fenrir was different. The wolf chose me. He was waiting for the right moment, the right host. He found what he was looking for and he started working. And Shikaku chose me too," Gaara said. Something moved in the sand around him, a slow uncomfortable shift. "To make me a weapon. That's what your father told you," Naruto said. That's what someone told Shikaku too, probably. Someone with an agenda. He looked at Gaara directly. A spirit that old, that powerful, it exists for itself, not for someone else's war. Whatever was told to you about what you are and what Shikaku wants from you, it came from a person. Not from the beast. Gaara was very still. Have you ever talked to it? Naruto asked. Directly. I cannot sleep, Gaara said. I cannot go to the place where, he stopped. The mindscape, Naruto said. The inner space. I know. The incomplete integration means the boundary is wrong. He thought about it. It doesn't require sleep. That's one way in, but not the only one. He watched Gaara's face. There's a state between sleep and waking that the wolf taught me to reach in the first month. Deep enough that the inner space opens, not so deep that you lose the surface. You'd need someone to show you how. Gaara looked at him. I'm offering, Naruto said. Not now, not tonight. After the finals, when there's time and the right context. He paused. But that's what I'm offering. The teal eyes were fully on him, doing something that was almost expression, the specific expression of a person encountering an offer that is not conditional in any visible way and therefore does not fit the category they have for offers. You don't know me, Gaara said. I know enough, Naruto said. I know what it looks like when someone has been carrying the whole weight of something alone for too long. I know that look really well. A long silence. The sand settled. Just slightly, the ambient cloud lowering a millimeter, the automatic protective motion slowing almost imperceptibly. As though the system had been listening to the conversation and made a minor operational adjustment. After the finals, Gaara said. After the finals, Naruto agreed. They sat in the dark for another hour before Gaara stood and walked back toward the Sand Team's temporary quarters without another word, which was Gaara's version of having said a great deal, and Naruto watched him go and felt Fenrir's steady approval in the back of his awareness like moonlight on still water. The finals came on a Sunday in high summer, the village packed with spectators from across the countries in the way the Chunin exams always filled Konoha with temporary population, the stands around the arena dense with noise and color and the compressed energy of a large number of people expecting entertainment. The backdrop for the invasion the village had been quietly preparing for. The pressure had a specific quality from the inside of it, knowing what the audience didn't know, reading the exits and the perimeter positions of the ANBU who were there in maintenance worker clothing and vendor uniforms, the silent preparation of a village that had been hit before and didn't intend to be hit the same way twice. Naruto's match was third. His opponent was a sound ninja, not the frequency technique user from the prelims, a different one, and when the boy walked into the arena Naruto read the chakra signature and felt Fenrir's attention sharpen. This one is different, the wolf said. I see it. The sound ninja's signature had the specific quality of something that had been altered, not naturally developed ability, but ability that had been enhanced through a technique applied from outside. The cursed seal or something adjacent to it. The boy's movement when he entered the arena had the wrong quality for someone at his visible age, too much power behind it, slightly uncontrolled, the way strength feels when it's been artificially added faster than the system can integrate it. And there, on the back of the boy's neck, visible when he turned, the specific mark. Orochimaru had placed it elsewhere. Not on Sasuke this time. On a candidate Naruto didn't recognize, from a village that existed only on paper. He looked across the arena at the box where the Hokage sat. Hiruzen was watching. Not the match, him. Naruto looked back at his opponent and thought about what the month had produced. The integration work. The wolf fully forward under control. The fox's chakra available in the lower registers without destabilization. The reading ability that had been the foundation of everything, 8 months of reading bodies and intentions and the geometry of movement, brought to a point now that was something different from what it had been even at the prelims. The match started. The sound ninja was fast. The cursed seal enhancement gave him a speed advantage that was real and significant, and if Naruto had been fighting him 3 months ago would have been a genuine problem. Now he read it, The enhanced speed with the imperfect control, the overcommitment on first engagement that came from having more power than your body had fully learned to use, the specific gap in the transition between the seal's first and second activation thresholds. He let the boy come. 3 exchanges, each one Naruto giving ground, reading, building the model with each contact, and by the 3rd exchange the model was complete and he stopped giving ground. The fox chakra came up in the low register, not the full red tide, the controlled channel that was available now like a current you stepped into, the way the wolf had described chakra back in the beginning. It moved through him warm and enormous and he let it sit at the surface level, the red at the edges of his own eyes mixing with the developing silver, and the sound ninja checked his advance for 2 seconds at the sight of it. 2 seconds was enough. Naruto moved with the full reading capability and the fox's chakra behind it, and the combination was something that hadn't existed before the month's work, not just speed or power but the specific efficiency of reading the exact right moment and having the reserves to fully exploit it. The throw that wasn't a throw. The redirect that used committed weight. The finish that was clean and complete and left the sound ninja on the arena floor breathing and functional and comprehensively outclassed. The arena was quiet for a moment. Then the noise came, and it was louder than anything that had followed the previous matches, and somewhere in it was a specific quality that Naruto had never heard directed at him from a Konoha crowd before, not just recognition, not just the involuntary response to impressive technique. Something else. The sound of a crowd that had been watching someone their whole lives with one set of assumptions and was encountering evidence that the assumptions were wrong. In the sound ninjas section, 2 other sound candidates were exchanging a look. In the Hokage's box, Hiruzen's expression had the quality of someone who had known something intellectually for a long time and had just experienced it physically. Sasuke's match was 5th. He fought a Rain candidate with the specific economy of someone who had been trained by grief and ambition for years and had recently found something sharpening the ambition into something more focused, less hollow. His fire technique had the hand seal compression that Kakashi had identified and he'd corrected, and his movement in the match had the beginning of the quality that Naruto's movement had been developing, not the same method. The Uchiha Red was visual and tactical where Naruto's was the wolf's instinct depth, but convergent in effect. He won cleanly. Sakura's match was 7th. She fought a grass candidate who used a paralysis through contact technique, and what the grass candidate didn't know about Sakura was what Shizune had given her over the previous 2 weeks, the medical chakra forming a second layer over her normal system, visible to the Sharingan as a distinct color, functioning as an insulation against contact-based techniques in the specific way that understanding a system allowed you to counter it. The grass candidate's paralysis technique found a host who had mapped the pathway it traveled and built a detour. Sakura won in under 2 minutes. In the stands, Ino Yamanaka made a sound that was equal parts outrage and involuntary respect. The invasion started at the beginning of the 8th match. Not with explosions or obvious technique, with the specific kind of simultaneous coordination that was the signature of a large, well-planned operation, the sound seals embedded in the audience activating all at once, putting most of the civilian spectators under a deep sleep genjutsu, the Sand Genin team moving to their predetermined positions, and through the arena floor, a rumbling that was not acoustic but structural, the sand moving beneath the stone. Gaara. Naruto was already moving before the arena announcer processed what was happening. He'd been watching Gaara's position in the stands for the last 3 matches, tracking the specific quality of the boy's stillness, and he'd felt the moment the activation signal hit, not the signal itself, but the response to it, the sudden change in Gaara's chakra signature from contained and grinding to released and building. The Suna siblings were moving. Kankuro taking an exit position, Temari already gone. Gaara dropped from the stands. The sand came with him in a quantity that was beyond the ambient protective cloud, the one-tailed beast's chakra pouring into it, and what came down from the stands was not a person flanked by sand anymore. It was the beginning of a transformation Naruto had read about and was now watching happen in real time, the sand shell building around the boy's body, covering him, Shikaku's form pressing outward through the seal's incomplete boundaries. Most of the arena was controlled chaos now. The sleep genjutsu covered the civilian sections, genin and chunin candidates trying to locate the source of multiple simultaneous threat vectors, jonin moving with the professional efficiency of people who had been briefed and were executing a prepared response. ANBU dropping their covers. Naruto ran. Not away from Gaara, toward him. He went over 2 rows of seats and down the arena wall and hit the floor at a run, and what he felt as he ran was both presences inside him coming fully forward simultaneously for the first time in a context that wasn't a training session. Not battling each other for surface, not taking turns. Both of them present, the fox's fire and the wolf's silver running in the same current, the way 2 rivers that had learned to share a channel finally expressed that learning. The physical change came without the deliberate deployment of the integration. Just happened. The nails, the silver gray deepening at the iris edges, the senses expanding outward in the full acute range, the baseline physical capability elevated in the way that Fenrir had described during the training but that hadn't been tested at full emotional and situational pressure. It felt like being more fully himself, not less. That was the thing about the wolf that was hardest to explain to people who hadn't experienced it. The transformation wasn't becoming something else. It was becoming more completely what he already was. Gaara landed in the center of the arena and the sand shell was halfway built, Shikaku's influence visible in the shape of it, the raccoon dog form emerging in the construction, enormous and grinding and ancient in the way of something that had never properly sat quiet in its host and was now being given full permission. Gaara, Naruto said. The construction paused. Not much, a fraction of a second, the length of a recognition. I know you can hear me, Naruto said. Under all of that. You're still in there. He walked toward the building sand form without changing his pace. The signal they sent you, the activation command. That's not your choice. That's someone else's. The sand moved toward him, a wave of it, and he went sideways with it the way he went sideways with everything and came out the other side still walking. You don't have to do this, he said. Not because the alternative is easy, the alternative is hard, the path out of what you've been is hard. But this isn't what you are. This is what someone made you into, and those are different things. The sand form was mostly built now, Shikaku's silhouette massive in the arena, and from somewhere inside it Gaara's voice came, distorted, the beast's presence layered over it, but present. I am a weapon, Gaara said. The beast in the voice, but also the boy. Both of them saying it. You were told that, Naruto said. There's a difference. The sand slammed down toward him. He brought up the fox chakra in the full controlled channel and it met the sand technique with an impact that cracked the arena floor in a radius and sent a concussive wave out across the space, and the sand dispersed, not destroyed but interrupted, and through the aftermath Gaara's form, more boy than beast for 1 second, was visible. Naruto let the wolf come fully forward. Not the partial integration of the training sessions. The complete version, the one Fenrir had been sequencing toward for 8 months, the one that required the fox chakra as stabilizer and the full presence of himself as the center of it. The silver came up through the red and the 2 colors in his eyes settled into something new, not alternating, not fighting for dominance, a layered coexistence that was the visual expression of what had been building for almost a year. The physical change completed. He didn't look different enough to be unrecognizable. He looked like himself fully inhabited, the nails, the eyes, the quality of physical presence elevated to something that occupied space differently than normal human bodies occupied it. He looked like what he was, a boy with 2 ancient spirits integrated into his system running together at full capacity for the first time. The arena went very quiet. Not the audience. Most of them were asleep or running. The people still conscious in the arena. Jonin who had been moving toward combat positions. ANBU dropping from entry points. They stopped, for the 2 seconds that the full presence of what Naruto was carrying took to process, and in those 2 seconds the only sound was the sand settling and the distant noise of the invasion beginning in the streets outside. Gaara looked at him. The beast was still there, the one-tailed demon pressing against the seal boundaries, the sand still responding to its influence. But Gaara's eyes, the teal eyes, fully his, were looking at Naruto's silver-and-red gaze with the expression of someone who had sat in a training ground in the dark 2 weeks ago and heard something they hadn't fully believed was possible and were now looking at the evidence that it was. 2, Gaara said. Flat. The wonder and the flatness were somehow the same register for him. 2, Naruto said. Fully. Both of them. He stopped 3 meters from Gaara, in the sand and the aftermath of the technique's dispersal. I told you there was a different path. I'm showing you what the other end of it looks like. The sand moved. A slow ambient shift, the defensive system cycling. Not an attack. You're not going to fight me, Gaara said. Not unless you make me, Naruto said. And I don't think you're going to make me. A long pause. From inside the sand form, from the place where Shikaku's presence pressed against the boundary, something happened that Naruto felt rather than saw, the wolf's ancient tracking reading it before any visible change occurred. A shift in the quality of the beast's pressure against the seal. Not easing, not withdrawing, something more complicated, something that was adjacent to the thing that had happened when Naruto sat in the mindscape with Kurama for the first time and the fox had looked at him with the red eyes and decided something. Recognition, maybe. From something that had been alone in an incomplete seal for 12 years, feeling another beast's presence on the other side of a thin wall of sand and finding it, different from what it had expected. The sand shell began to recede. Slowly, incompletely, Shikaku's influence was still active, the beast wasn't gone, the seal's imperfect condition hadn't changed. But the building of the full transformation stopped, the form incomplete, Gaara's body visible in the center of it, and the boy stood in the receding sand with the hollow-eyed exhaustion of someone who had been running at crisis capacity for 12 years. Naruto walked up to him. He put a hand on Gaara's shoulder. The sand came up immediately, the automatic system reacting, and he kept his hand there and let it react and didn't move, and after 3 seconds the sand settled again. It's okay, Naruto said quietly. He wasn't sure it was, not fully, not yet, the invasion was happening outside, the village was fighting, Orochimaru was somewhere in this doing whatever the next piece of his plan involved. None of it was resolved. He knew that. But here, in the center of the arena, this specific piece of it was. Gaara looked at him with the teal eyes and said nothing. His silence had a different quality now, not the defensive flatness of every previous silence, not the armored nothing of someone who had stopped expecting anything. The silence of someone who was reprocessing a category. I said after the finals, Naruto said. But given the circumstances. The circumstances changed the timeline, Gaara said. In the flattest possible voice. Which was as close as Gaara got to agreement. Yeah. Naruto looked around the arena, the chaos of the invasion in progress, the Jonin and Anbu movements that told him the prepared response was running the way it had been designed to run. I have to go find the Hokage. The snake man, Gaara said. Orochimaru. Yes. He looked at Gaara. Will you? I will not fight for the invasion, Gaara said. Clearly, without needing the full question. My siblings will be, your siblings aren't invested in this the way the invasion planners hoped, Naruto said. Temari is practical. Kankuro follows her. He paused. Come with me. Or stay here. Either way is fine. Gaara looked at the arena around them, the sleeping audience, the damaged floor, the incomplete sand form still half present at the edges of his position. Then he looked at Naruto. The wolf is still fully forward, Gaara said. Yeah. It doesn't threaten me. He said it like it was a data point. Something he was noting for its value rather than its emotional content. I know, Naruto said. It sees you clearly. Something that sees you clearly isn't a threat unless you've been doing things worth being threatened for. The teal eyes did something. Not quite expression, not in the way most people express things. Somewhere under the hollow exhaustion, a door opened approximately a centimeter, the door to the space where Gaara kept the things he couldn't afford to show, and then closed again. But the centimeter had happened. Go find the Hokage, Gaara said. Naruto went. The battle for Konoha was happening in 3 places simultaneously: the streets, where the sound and sand forces that had been embedded in the exam support staff were engaging the ANBU and Jonin response teams; the outer wall, where the sand forces from outside were being met by the village's prepared perimeter; and the roof of the arena's main tower, where Hiruzen had moved when the invasion began, and where Orochimaru had followed. Naruto found them there. The roof was flat and wide, and both men were in it with the specific quality of 2 people who had a great deal of history and were in the process of adding more to it. Hiruzen was old, but he was the god of shinobi, which was a title that had been earned rather than awarded, and the quality of his presence at full combat capacity was something Naruto could read from 40 meters away: enormous, controlled, carrying 40 years of everything in it. Orochimaru was himself. Which was enough. The summoning jutsu was active, the 2 snakes, massive, the third's Monkey King responding from the other side, and the specific seal that Orochimaru was working with had the quality of something Naruto had read about in Hiruzen's supplemental materials. The dead demon consuming seal. The technique that cost its user everything. He felt Fenrir's attention on it sharpen. That technique uses the user's life as payment, the wolf said. The old man intends to use it. Naruto was already at full run. He came onto the roof at speed and Orochimaru saw him immediately, the golden eyes registering his arrival with the live observation quality from the forest, the scientist noting the new variable. The performance of pleasantness was completely gone. What was there in its place was not hostility exactly, but the fully undisguised focus of a man who was in the middle of his primary objective and had encountered an interruption. Naruto, Hiruzen said. Not a greeting. A warning. I know what you're doing, Naruto said. To Hiruzen directly. Don't. The technique is the only, it isn't, Naruto said. There are other ways to end this that don't require. He looked at the old man, really looked, and what the wolf's full reading showed him was, the Hokage had been carrying the guilt of the second seal for 8 years. The knowledge of what Minato had done, locked in the file he didn't open, the weight of the question of whether the decision had been right or wrong and whether the boy who carried it had been given anything close to what he deserved. The deployment of the death seal in this moment was not only tactical. It was atonement. The specific shape of a person who had decided a sacrifice was owed and had found a context that allowed it to look like strategy. You're not dying for me, Naruto said. Don't. Hiruzen's expression moved. Give me 30 seconds on Orochimaru, Naruto said. Then decide. A pause. 30 seconds, Hiruzen said. Naruto turned to Orochimaru. The snake Sannin was looking at him with the golden eyes and the full compressed enormousness of his chakra and the very specific expression of someone who had made a model and is watching it prove itself, not the variance he'd noted in the forest, the interesting discrepancy that had delighted him. Something more direct now, the scientist's excitement at a culminating observation. You came, Orochimaru said. You're ruining my exam, Naruto said. The laugh happened again, real, involuntary, the one that surfaced when Orochimaru received something he hadn't expected. It was shorter this time, the situation too active for the full expression. You're extraordinary, he said, and meant it the way scientists mean things, which was complete and impersonal. I'm going to stop the invasion, Naruto said. I'm going to get Gaara back to sand with his siblings. I'm going to make sure Konoha doesn't fall today. And then in 2 weeks, or 6 months, or 2 years, he held Orochimaru's golden gaze, the silveran red of his own eyes steady, you're going to come back for the data you want. Because you can't help it. The model is too interesting. He paused. And when you do, you're going to find that everything you built toward the encounter you're planning is already obsolete. You can't know that, Orochimaru said. I told you in the forest, Naruto said. I don't stop. 2 weeks of work after today is 2 weeks of work you haven't accounted for. 2 months. 2 years. He kept his voice level, the wolf's quality of deep certainty running through it. Your model will always be behind. That's not a threat. It's just true. The golden eyes were fully present, running the observation. "I look forward to testing that," Orochimaru said, and the way he said it, the specific quality of intellectual anticipation, was more honest than anything else he'd said. He stepped back from the seal formation. Not retreating, not defeated, withdrawing. The movement of a researcher who had collected sufficient data from a session and was ending it on his own terms. The invasion is already failing. I designed it to be recoverable. There's value in live observation over dead certainty. He moved toward the roof's edge. "Orochimaru," Naruto said. The Sannin paused. "The people you sent into Konoha today," Naruto said. "The ones who didn't survive the response. Whatever they thought they were doing, they were data to you." The golden eyes were unreadable. "That has a cost," Naruto said. "Not from me. From the universe's version of accounting." He held the gaze for a moment. "I want you to know I see that clearly." Orochimaru looked at him for one more second with the golden eyes, and something in them moved. Not guilt, the concept was clearly too distant from his operating framework for that. But something. The specific experience of being seen clearly by something whose perception you have not underestimated, and finding the experience unexpectedly significant. He left. The invasion took another 4 hours to fully resolve. Naruto spent most of it moving, helping coordinate the response at 2 points on the perimeter where the sand forces from outside had pressed hardest, locating the embedded sound operatives in the arena support structure and directing the ANBU units to them, running messages between response teams in the way that genin were genuinely useful in large-scale operations because they moved faster between nodes than formal communication channels. The wolf's full integration stayed active throughout. He stopped thinking about it as a deployed state and started experiencing it as simply how he was operating, the elevated senses, the physical capability, the dual presence running as the integrated thing it had become. It was the first time in a crisis context that the distinction between Naruto normally and Naruto with both spirits forward had ceased to feel like a distinction. Sasuke found him at hour 3, on a street corner in the market district where he'd just redirected an ANBU unit to the last known sound operative position. The Uchiha was bloodied on one side, a cut above the eye from something in the fight, not serious, already being ignored, and was moving with the sharp efficiency of someone running on full capacity. "Perimeters holding," Sasuke said. "The outer sand forces broke contact 10 minutes ago. Word is their commander withdrew." "The commander doesn't know Gaara isn't coming," Naruto said. Sasuke looked at him. "Gaara. He's not fighting. The beast is contained." He looked down the street at the last visible activity. The invasion loses its main weapon and the tactical calculus changes. Sasuke was quiet for a moment. "You talked him out of it." "We talked," Naruto said. "There's a difference." Sakura arrived from the east, moving fast, with a sand kunoichi's arm over her shoulder, one of the casualties from the perimeter response, not a combatant but caught in the edge of a technique's blast radius. Sakura had a medical kit out and was running assessment while she walked, the new medical chakra visible at her hands, her expression the specific focused calm of someone doing something they're genuinely good at. Team 7, in a market district in Konoha with the invasion fading around them, coming together from different directions with the natural gravity of people who had been working in the same system from different nodes. Kakashi appeared behind Sakura, because Kakashi always appeared, and his vest was dusty and his book was absent and the mask was in the position it was in when he'd been running hard, and he looked at all three of them with the one-eye assessment that catalogued and reported back to whatever he kept his calculations in, and his expression did the thing. "Everyone functional?" he asked. "Yes," Sakura said, not stopping her assessment of the sand kunoichi. "Yes," Sasuke said. Naruto looked at Kakashi with the silver and red eyes still active, the wolf fully forward, and Kakashi looked back at him, and the thing that had been building between them since the roof conversation after the bell test was present in the exchange without needing to be said. "Yes," Naruto said. "All things considered." Kakashi's I did the thing that was a smile under the mask and he said, "Good," and then a new priority communication arrived from the ANBU coordination point and they all moved again. At sunset, when the village had been secured and the formal post-invasion protocols were running and the cleanup had begun in the earnest way that cleanup began after large disasters, systematic, unglamorous, necessary, Naruto went back to the arena. Gaara was still there. He was sitting in the center of the arena floor, in the last light of the day coming through the high windows, with the sand quiet around him in a way it apparently had never been quiet before. Not dormant, present, but calm, the automatic protective movement stilled in a way that was new. He looked up when Naruto came in. "Your village survived," he said. "Yeah." Naruto sat down across from him. The wolf was still present at full integration. He let it stay there, it felt right here, the wolf's deep reading of Gaara continuing the process it had started 2 weeks ago in the dark. "You're still here." "My siblings are at the eastern gate," Gaara said. "Waiting." A pause. "I told them to wait." "Did they?" "Temari is practical," he said, which was the same thing Naruto had said about Temari earlier and had a quality of surprised confirmation in it, like hearing your own observation reflected back. "The beast," Naruto said. "How is it now?" Gaara looked at his hands. The sand was there, around his fingers, the ambient always present sand of 12 years of continuous activation. But the quality of its movement was different. Slower. The grinding urgency of the automatic defense running at crisis capacity was not present. "Shikaku is," he stopped. Frowned with the intensity of someone searching for a word they've never needed before. "Quieter," he said finally. "Because of the contact," Naruto said. "What happened in the arena?" When Kurama and Fenrir were both fully present, Shikaku felt them. "Something in the recognition changed the pressure," Gaara said. "Yes." He looked at his hands for another moment. "I am still what I am. The seal has not changed. I have not changed." A pause. "But something is different." "The beginning of something is always small," Naruto said. "It's still the beginning." Gaara looked at him with the teal eyes in the last day's light. "You said you would show me how to reach Shikaku directly. The method the wolf taught you." He said it the way he said most things, flat, stripped of everything decorative, but the flatness carried something now that it hadn't always carried. The weight of something that wanted to be said more than it could afford to be said expressively. "I said after the finals," Naruto said. "The finals were interrupted." "They were." He looked at the arena around them, the damaged floor, the sand residue at the edges where the transformation had begun and been recalled. The place where something had changed its course. Close enough to after. Gaara sat very still. Naruto closed his eyes and let Fenrir settle fully, the silver deepening, the wolf's deep patience coming forward. The method was simple at its surface, the state between sleep and waking, the specific quality of the inward turn that opened the mindscape without losing surface awareness. He'd been doing it for 8 months. It was as natural as breathing now. "Follow my breathing," he said. "Not the rate, the quality. There's a way of breathing that goes inward instead of outward. Fenrir taught me to find it. It's there, you have it too. Everything with a spirit inside has the pathway. It's just whether you found it." Gaara closed his eyes. The arena was quiet around them. In Naruto's mindscape, both presences were fully present, the fox's fire in its domain, the 9 tails slow and enormous in the cage that felt less like a cage every month as the bar's significance eroded, and Fenrir in the silver light, the wolf sitting with the permanent quality of something that has been in exactly this place for a very long time and finds it appropriate. "There is another one out there," Kurama said. "Not with hostility. With something more complicated. The sand beast." "Shikaku," Naruto said internally. "I know what it is," Kurama said. "I'm older than the seal systems that contain it." A pause, the quality of something vast considering something. "It has been wrong for a long time. Left in the wrong conditions. The boy has been," another pause. "It is not the boy's fault." "No," Naruto said. "It's not. Something from Kurama that wasn't a word. A sound at the subverbal level of immense things communicating below the human frequency band. Present and gone. Outside, in the arena, Gaara's breathing changed. Naruto opened his eyes and watched the boy's face, and what he saw there was the specific expression of someone who had gone somewhere they had never been before and was finding, in that somewhere, something they had not expected to find. He let him have it. The last light through the arena's high windows moved across the sand and the damaged stone and the two boys sitting cross-legged in the center of it, one blonde and silver-eyed in the wolf's full integration, one red-haired and hollow-eyed in 12 years of uninterrupted crisis, both of them carrying ancient things and finding, in the specific stillness of the moment, something that was not resolution but was the beginning of the road toward it. Naruto looked at the arena and thought about everything the year had held. The alley. The rain. The door at the bottom of the dark lake. The wolf sitting in silver light like it had been waiting exactly there for exactly this. Hiruzen in the wobbling chair. Kakashi's one-eye assessment on the roof of Training Ground 7. Haku's sad eyes in the ice dome. Tezuna's bridge, incomplete in the dark. Orochimaru in the forest with his golden eyes and his model and his data. The invasion and the streets and Team 7 moving through it like they'd been made for it, which maybe they had. The headband on his forehead, the weight of it, the specific reality of it. Not a symbol of what he'd been told he was, whatever the village's fear and the whispers and the careful path widening on the street had tried to tell him he was. A symbol of what he'd decided. Hokage. Not yet. That was the long road, not the short one. There was more to come. Orochimaru would be back, the model would always need updating, there were things out there in the world larger than what he'd encountered so far and he knew it. The wolf was ancient enough to see that horizon and the fox had lived long enough to know it was real. But this year had been the shape of it. The structure of what it would take. Two spirits, one direction. The reading, the patience, the refusal to be anything less than fully what he was, the pack that had built itself out of a bell test and a bridge and a dark training ground and ramen at Ichiraku and late nights and the slow construction of something that he didn't have a single word for but that Fenrir had been pointing toward from the beginning. He would be better tomorrow. He would be better next month. He would be so far past whatever Orochimaru or anyone else projected for him by the time the next encounter arrived that the projection would be a different story entirely. That was the plan. That was the only plan that had ever been worth having. Fenrir, he said, internal, as Gaara's breathing deepened toward the threshold. Here, the wolf said. Was I what you were waiting for? He asked. The question he'd been carrying since the first conversation in the mindscape. Since the wolf had said the first host worthy of the wolf in 1,000 years. He'd been saving it, not sure he was ready for whatever the answer was. The wolf was quiet for a long time. I don't know yet, Fenrir said. Ask me again in 10 years. It was the same answer as before. The answer from the very first conversation, from the alley's aftermath and the rain and the pink water draining toward the grate. By then we'll know. Naruto looked at the last light in the arena and felt completely, unreservedly fine with that answer. He had work to do.